Well, at least they didn't call him Ong. So, for some reason, they came out with yet another live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender, something that nobody asked for. I'm sure we've all seen or at least heard of the dreaded M. Night Shyamalan live-action adaptation. That was horrible in many ways. Probably the most prominent way is that it was just flat-out boring. I tried rewatching it a couple years ago just for the laughs and to make fun of it, but honestly, nothing was happening. All the lines were delivered with such low energy. It was just boring and incredibly unremarkable. So Netflix wanted to take another crack at it, give it an old gander, even though it's something we really don't need. I don't know what it is with the West and this idea that animation is for kids and that it's a genre. Animation is not a genre, okay? It's a medium of which many different genres can be told within it. And it is not strictly made for children. In fact, there are many anime I could show you that would scar a child. Lots of adults watch anime and love anime. It's not just for kids. So I don't know why in the West there's this stigma about cartoons being for kids. And we've had so many artistic, mature movies come out in animation for adults lately. Probably the biggest example is Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, two movies that got very good reception. So it's pretty obvious that there is a market for animation for all ages. And plenty of people watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animation, constantly. A lot of people rewatch it, adults rewatch it, and it's perfect. In order to prepare for watching this live action adaptation, I rewatched Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it is literally perfect. There's nothing about it that needs to be changed. I could maybe understand a live action adaptation if there was some major flaw with it, but there's literally nothing. It's the best animated show like ever. And it's already so widely loved. Everybody already knows about the original. There is zero reason to make a live action adaptation other than to put money in the pockets of Hollywood producers. But okay, I heard about the adaptation and I was trying to give it the benefit of the doubt. And then I heard that the original creators that had come onto the adaptation left. They just packed their bags and left. They didn't want to be involved with the project anymore, which is kind of concerning and a big red flag. And if the people remaking the show are making so many poor changes that the original creators don't like it, most people who liked the original probably won't like the remake. And the remake is for the people who love the original, because who's gonna watch the live action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender as their first watch after the M. Night Shyamalan fiasco? And if you haven't watched the animated Avatar: The Last Airbender yet, you should go watch it because you're missing out. So yeah, right off the bat, major red flags. And then I heard another thing. Apparently, in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, the actress for Katara said, "I feel like we also took out the element of how sexist Sokka was. I feel like there were a lot of moments in the original show that were iffy." Oh my god. How did we not think of this sooner? Guys, this is the cure for sexism. We just don't talk about it and pretend it doesn't exist. Yeah, so hearing just that already plummeted all of my expectations of the show. And you might think I'm overreacting, but I'm really not. Because here's the thing. If you watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, you will see that Sokka's sexism isn't just something that they threw in for the laughs, and that it's actually a really big part of his character that ties into a lot of his themes. One of Sokka's big traits is his willingness to learn, to say, I was wrong, and I'm wanting to learn how to do it right. An important episode for him was in season 3 of The Last Airbender, where he wanted to get training in sword fighting.
Let me guess. You've come hundreds of miles from your little village, and you think you deserve to learn from the master.
Well, actually, I've been all over the world.
Here we go.
And I know one thing for sure. I have a lot to learn.
The sword master that he approached had already turned down many people before who had come to him cocky, demanding to learn about his expertise. But Sokka came to him, kneeling on the ground, and saying that he wasn't sure if he was worthy and that there was a lot he still needed to learn. This is a big focus on Sokka's character. Sokka's sexism is mostly just in the first season, and it's a conduit to show us how Sokka is capable and willing to learn. In the episode on Kyoshi Island, Sokka's taken down by a group of women Kyoshi warriors, and he makes a big fuss over it.
Show yourselves, cowards! Who are you? Where are the men who ambushed us?
There were no men. We ambushed you.
Wait a second, there's no way a bunch of girls took us down.
He's never seen female warriors before. He didn't think women could be warriors. But when Suki proves him wrong and manages to easily knock him down, he comes to her kneeling, saying, I was wrong. Women can be excellent fighters, and I want you to show me how to fight like you can.
Hey, Suki.
Hoping for another dance lesson?
No, well, let me explain.
Spit it out. What do you want?
I would be honored if you would teach me.
Even if I'm a girl?
I'm sorry if I insulted you earlier. I was wrong.
It's a really important moment for his character, and it ties into some of his later episodes. And it's not just a random character trait that the writers gave him either. Sokka grew up being the only man in his village. When he was just a kid, all of the men in the village left to go fight in the war, and this pressure was put on his shoulders to be the man, to be the warrior, the protector of his village.
I'm coming with you.
You're not old enough to go to war, Sokka. You know that.
I'm strong, I'm brave, I can fight.
Being a man is knowing where you're needed the most. And for you right now, that's here protecting your sister.
He grew up with this understanding that he had to be the strong one, that he had to keep the women out of danger and protected. It was something that stemmed from his situation and his lack of awareness of the outer world. He grew up in a really small tribe. He was really the only man in his tribe. This is just the way things were done, the way that he was used to it. But when the Kyoshi warriors proved him wrong, he was more than willing to change his mind and learn from them. I don't think Sokka's sexism was an inappropriate use of writing. And any time that Sokka did make a sexist joke, he was knocked down for it. In the very first scene of Avatar, Sokka makes a really sexist remark, and Katara blows up at him over it and uses waterbending so strong that it causes a whole iceberg to rise.
I knew I should have left you home. Leave it to a girl to screw things up.
You are the most sexist, immature, nut-brained... I'm embarrassed to be related to you!
When Sokka says sexist things to Suki, Suki takes him down.
Normally I'd hold a grudge, but seeing as you guys are a bunch of girls, I'll make an exception.
A big, strong man like you? We wouldn't stand a chance. Maybe you'd be kind enough to give us a little demonstration.
All right, you stand over there. Now, this may be a little tough, but try to block me. Ah! Good. Of course, I was going easy on you.
Of course.
The important thing about it is that the writers acknowledge that Sokka is in the wrong by having him shut down every time he makes one of these remarks. The show is pointing out that it's a flaw and he works to overcome it. You know, characters are in fact allowed to have flaws. Also, when you have characters like Toph and Suki and Katara and Azula, I don't think you really watch Avatar: The Last Airbender and think, now that's the most misogynistic show I've ever seen. But despite these factors, I buckled down and I prepared myself and I watched the first episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix. And it was not good, you guys. So, this episode opens up with the chase sequence because God forbid we ever get shows or movies that open up with something other than a chase sequence these days. But okay, something that did become pretty apparent right off the bat was that this show knew how to make bending look cool. The fire bending and the earth bending in this opening scene are pretty amazing, all right? It looks pretty realistic, it looks pretty cool. It's not just 5 people doing a fancy move to lift a tiny pebble. So that's one of the big things that I appreciate in this remake, is their focus on making the element bending, a pretty big aspect of the show, look really good. But then, as the earthbender is running away, the firebender that got knocked down by the earth looks up and says, Earthbender.
An earthbender.
Which I thought was pretty obvious, but okay. Another thing that kind of caught me off guard is how much slow motion they use. I don't remember the cartoon using quite this much slow-mo. The adaptation really loves slow-mo. But to be fair, the slow-mo shots do usually look pretty cool, so I don't know, I guess that's more of a nitpick than anything. And just a couple of minutes into this episode, this show presents a pretty big issue to me. And it's the fact that they showed the Fire Lord right off the bat. And I'll tell you why that's a problem, okay? So in the very first couple of minutes, they show Fire Lord Sozin. And then towards the end of just episode 2, they show us Fire Lord Ozai. This was something that really bothered me, you guys, okay? Something that I've always noticed in the cartoon that I love is the fact that Fire Lord Ozai's face isn't shown until the very first episode of season 3.
See, the weight of your travels has changed you. You have redeemed yourself, my son. Welcome home.
Now, Fire Lord Ozai is in the background of some scenes. There's some flashbacks, and he's present, but they never have a close-up of his face. They only ever show his mouth to see it upturned in a smile or in a frown. But we never really meet Ozai until season 3, and I think that's a really smart choice done by the creators. For the first 2 seasons, you don't really know Ozai, so he's more of an intimidating figure looming in the background, somebody that Aang is going to have to defeat at some point, but we don't really know him at all. Since we know next to nothing about him, he's far more intimidating. He's like this abstract concept, this embodiment of fear. It's really cool. And so by showing all of these Fire Lords, like right off the bat in the show, it takes away all of the intimidation of the fear of the unknown. And I think that it made Ozai and the Fire Nation a lot less intimidating, in my opinion. So the first scene that we get in the first episode is basically a flashback to how the war started. Now, if it's been a hot second since you've seen the cartoon Avatar: The Last Airbender, I'll remind you how the very first episode started. Basically, Katara and Sokka are out fishing in the ocean. Sokka says something sexist, Katara freaks out about it, and it causes Aang's iceberg to rise up out of the water and crack. Sokka and Katara see it, and despite Sokka's warnings, Katara approaches it, breaks it open. When Katara does break open the iceberg, there's a blinding beam of light that alerts Prince Zuko of where they are. We then see Appa and Aang come out of the iceberg, and Katara and Sokka bring Aang back to their teeny tiny tribe. Meanwhile, Prince Zuko with Uncle Iroh are both looking for the Avatar since they saw this beam of light. We see a couple of small snippets of Aang's flashbacks to what was happening before he got trapped in the ice, and then we learn a little bit of what's going on surrounding the war. The episode ends with Aang and Katara climbing onto an old Fire Navy ship and then setting off a trap which further alerts Zuko of where they are. It's a pretty good first episode. It does a really good job of establishing the characters, and it takes its time. The first season of Avatar is pretty slow because it really wants you to connect to the characters, and it's trying to establish itself and expand upon the world building. And then we get to this first episode of the adaptation, and it starts off pretty different. The very first scene that we get is the beginning of the war. We get to meet Fire Lord Sozin and see how the war really first started. Something that I don't think we really needed to see right off the bat. I imagine that the writers made this the first scene to kind of hook you in with the combat and the intrigue and the intensity of the situation. So like, okay, if you want to start off with that, that's fine. But then they make the choice of also then opening up with the entirety of Aang's backstory. Something that in the cartoon we don't see until episode 12. So all of these flashbacks take up the first 20 minutes of the adaptation, which I think is far too much. It's like if you took Once Upon a Time, and instead of interlacing the present day moments with flashbacks of the fairy tale characters, you just showed all of the flashbacks and then all of the present day moments. The show wouldn't be nearly as interesting. Where's the mystery? Where's the intrigue? Not only are they just showing all of these action-packed backstory sequences, but there is also so much exposition.
Aang has always been a prodigy, the youngest airbender in history to receive the markings of a master. But he is only 12. We can't ask this of him.
Fire Lord Sozin is planning to attack the Earth Kingdom. The Water Tribes are already sending the warriors to aid the Earthbenders, and we need to help them as well.
Most received their markings in the main hall, but I wanted you to receive yours in the presence of Yang Chen, the last air nomad to be the Avatar. When she died, the next Avatar was born into the following nation in the eternal cycle. So after Yang Chen's death came Kuruk.
You aren't going to go through the entire rest of the season wanting to know more about the Avatar and the state of the war, because the show just explains it to you with some of the most straightforward dialogue and uninteresting scenes imaginable. And one of these exposition backstory moments that they show way too early is Aang finding out that he is the Avatar.
Aang, you are the Avatar. The Fire Nation is embarked on a dark path. Their actions threaten to throw the world out of balance. Only the Avatar, who can master all 4 elements, can save the world.
Aang's big struggle in the show is that Aang is struggling with the weight of this responsibility, of being the Avatar, of being 12 years old and being responsible for stopping a war. And we find this out slowly in the cartoon. We get attached to Aang, we get to know him, he's just like a fun kid. And so as we slowly learn more and more about, oh, Aang's the Avatar? Well, what does that mean? What does that entail? Like, we start to really sympathize with him as a character. So that by the time that we get to episode 12, and we have this really fleshed out backstory of Aang learning that he's the Avatar, we can understand why it's so earth-shattering for him. You know, we go these 12 episodes getting to know Aang as a person, and getting to see all these expectations that people have of the Avatar in general. So when we get this flashback of Aang being told that he's the Avatar, we can actually understand the importance of it. We can understand the gravity of those words. In the adaptation, we're told super early on that Aang is the Avatar, but we can't really sympathize with him freaking out over it.
I like to play airball and eat banana cakes and goof off with my friends. That's who I am. Not someone who can stop the Fire Nation. Not someone who can stop a war. I don't want to leave. I don't want the responsibility. I'm scared of my power. I'm scared of being alone.
We haven't had time to learn what being the Avatar really means. We've been told, we have been expressly verbally told what the Avatar is and what it means to be the Avatar, but we haven't seen it. We haven't gotten to experience it. It makes it a lot harder for us to sympathize with Aang in this scene because we just don't really know what's going on yet. Because we just haven't gotten a chance to know him yet. There's been no time for us to get to know Aang as a person outside of being an Avatar. But okay, so in episode 12 of the Avatar cartoon, where we see Aang's flashback where he runs away, Aang deliberately runs away. He finds out he's the Avatar, and he hears that he's going to be taken away from his favorite teacher. So he writes a runaway note and flees with Appa, and he just so happens to flee into a storm, and he ends up frozen in an iceberg so that he doesn't die out in this storm.
The Avatar will be sent away to the Eastern Air Temple to complete his training.
You have a right to be angry after the monks sent you away like that.
Well, that's not exactly what happened. I didn't know what to do.
Aang, I'm not going to let them take you away from me. Aang?
I never saw Gyatso again.
In the adaptation, though, Aang is just like going out for like a leisurely stroll.
Gyatso says I'm supposed to be the Avatar. Monks don't even trust me to feed the baby bison, and I'm supposed to save the world? You're right. Just need to go up where things always make more sense. At least for now.
Come with me, quickly! Where's Aang?
In the cartoon, Aang deliberately makes the choice to run away. He chooses to flee from his responsibilities, and he flies out into a dangerous storm because he just can't deal with the pressure. In this adaptation, Aang is disappointed to hear that he is the Avatar. He goes up to Appa and he's like, you know what? I just need to like go to my peaceful place and take some time to cool off. So he goes on Appa and he's just planning on going out on a nice ride to clear his mind. And then he just so happens to end up in a crazy storm where he gets frozen in an iceberg the very same night, like literally 5 seconds after he leaves, the Fire Nation attacks the air temple. Like in the cartoon, we don't know exactly how much time passed before Aang leaving and the Fire Nation attacking, but I don't think it was the same night. In the adaptation, they go for it. They're like, the second Aang's gone, the Fire Nation is attacking. Like, oh, what a coincidence. Aang leaves just at the wrong time. And so the Fire Nation comes in, and they have this very, very long fighting sequence of just the Fire Nation brutally murdering all these airbenders. Like, this episode is really dark and really serious. And when I had first watched it, I had thought that it meant that this show was gonna have a darker take on the cartoon, be a lot more serious and realistic, and not pulling any punches when it came to the horrors of war. Which it does in some scenes throughout the season. Like, there are some scenes that show the horrors of war. But even though this episode specifically is very dark and serious, all the following episodes have a lot of lighthearted humor, to the point where, to me personally, it felt like they couldn't figure out what tone they wanted to go for. Like, you would have these really, really serious, realistic moments, and then, like, these really goofy, cartoonish conversations that kind of just took you out of the show. The cartoon masterfully blended really dark scenes and humorous scenes together in a way where it felt seamless and totally consistent, but this show felt like it wanted to be really dark and dramatic, but it also really wanted to pander to the audiences that loved the humor of the original. It couldn't make up its mind what kind of show it wanted to be, and that's a pretty big detriment. But yeah, so in this version of Aang's backstory, Aang isn't really choosing to run away from his responsibilities. He's just like going out for a stroll. This is a really, really big problem for Aang as a character, because one of Aang's major struggles throughout the show is Aang figuring out how to deal with his guilt. In the cartoon, Aang is constantly guilty of the fact that he chose to run away. He chose to abandon his responsibilities. Like, obviously it was not his intention to get trapped in the storm and get frozen in an iceberg for 100 years. Like, he didn't choose that. We understand that even though Aang did choose to run away, he didn't choose to abandon the world for 100 years, but that's the way that he feels. He has this survivor's guilt throughout the show that he has to come to terms with. But the adaptation severely lessens this by making it like just a happenstance. A survivor's guilt is a very real tragic thing, and a lot of times things are just pure accidents and people feel guilty for it when the accident 100% was not their fault and they had nothing to do with it. But the original show did still give Aang some agency. His choices still made an impact and led to the events that followed. In the adaptation, it's not really Aang's fault at all. Like, sure, you could say Aang just had really terrible timing when it came to going for a stroll, but Aang was not choosing to run away. There's a really big distinction here, and maybe you think I'm nitpicking, but I thought this was crazy. I thought it was crazy that they decided to just make it an accident instead of having Aang choose to run away, because that was his big gripe in the cartoon, that he felt so guilty over his choice. In the adaptation, it wasn't a choice. He didn't choose to run away, he just had bad timing. It's totally different. Yes, he could still have some very real survivalist guilt, but it's like this show is just afraid to give the characters agency and let them make mistakes. Okay, so we get the flashback to the war starting, and now it skips forward 100 years. And then it continues basically the same way the cartoon started. Except here's another thing. When Aang is freed from the iceberg, Katara is not intentionally freezing him. And I think this is just one of the many missed opportunities of providing the characters with agency. Things just happen to the characters. They don't make these choices. In the original cartoon, Katara accidentally brings Aang to the surface, but despite Sokka telling her not to, she runs up and attacks the iceberg further, intentionally trying to free Aang from it. In the adaptation, Aang just is freed from the iceberg. Like, it was completely an accident. Katara and Sokka have nothing to do with Aang being saved from the iceberg. In the cartoon, it's pretty obvious that Katara is the one breaking open the iceberg, that her big dramatic movements are cracking it. But then in the live action, Katara's just like slightly wiggling her hands and these giant cracks appear in the iceberg. And so her movements in the adaptation are not equivalent to how dramatic the iceberg breaking is. It also fails to reveal anything about her character. In the cartoon, Katara breaks open the iceberg because of her fierce, stubborn anger. But then, in the live action, she's just casually trying to bring the canoe over. There's like no emotion tied to this scene. This scene doesn't tell us anything about Katara, which is pretty stupid when you could instead just give the characters agency and have them choose to free Aang. Because Katara choosing to free Aang from the iceberg is also vital to one of her main character attributes, and it is that she will not abandon people. It is a very big reoccurring theme for her character. We see it in episode 6, Imprisoned.
Your 12 hours are up. Where's Haru? We've got to get out of here.
I can't.
We don't have much time. There are guards everywhere.
What's wrong?
I'm not leaving. I'm not giving up on these people.
We see it in season 3, episode 3, The Painted Lady.
The army's gonna blame the villagers. They're headed there right now to get revenge.
Well, what was I supposed to do?
Leave. Do nothing.
No! I will never, ever turn my back on people who need me.
It is a very prominent aspect of her character that she will willingly fight to protect people in danger. And so having Katara choose to go forward and break Aang out of the iceberg despite being told not to is like this very first spark showing her headstrong, protective nature. I know that these moments that I'm talking about are very small, but together they create the heart of the show. These tiny little moments of characters making these choices. It's all what adds up together. Probably the biggest thing that I love about Avatar: The Last Airbender is how much agency the characters have. Nothing ever just happens. Things happen because the characters make choices, and the characters make a lot of choices, a lot of them being bad. The characters make horrible decisions. Aang, notably in season 1, makes really terrible, awful, selfish, childish decisions because he's a kid and he still needs to learn. He has time to mature.
I'm expecting a message from your father.
Really?
When?
Any day now. If you wait here until the message arrives, you can come with me and see your father again.
It's been over 2 years since we've seen Dad. That would be so incredible.
I do really miss him. It would be great to see Dad.
I can't believe they would leave me.
I'm looking for Bato of the Water Tribe.
I know Bato.
Make sure he gets this.
It's the map to Sokka and Katara's dad.
Zuko spends the entire 3 seasons making the worst decisions known to man. And he's an excellent, very intriguing character. The cartoon gives the characters plenty of agency, and throughout this adaptation, I just watch them slowly taking it away to the point where these characters are just puppets of this outline of the plot that they wanted to have happen. It's very frustrating, you guys. It's so frustrating. I really wanted this adaptation to be good, but it's just not. Also, instead of Katara and Sokka's home being introduced as the Southern Water Tribe, they decide to call it Wolf Cove, which is just about as creative of a name as the Blue People Avatar calling the material unobtainium.
This is why we're here. Unobtainium.
We turn back to Katara and Sokka and Aang, and all of the bending in this show looks pretty snazzy, except for the airbending. And this isn't anything on the show. I think you just can't make airbending not look ridiculous. I think it's practically impossible. I think that somebody like whooshing their hands and then flying in the air. I think that's just gonna look ridiculous no matter how much CGI effects you put into it. So like, the show definitely tried their best. Objectively, I guess it looks good, but anytime I see Aang airbending, I can't help but laugh. Once again, we're delivered some more delightful exposition.
They destroyed everything in their path. Everything. Afterwards, our father set out with the other warriors to hunt down the firebenders. That was 3 years ago, and we haven't seen him since. He had left Sokka in charge, and he just turned 13. They were part of the Fire Nation's first attacks on the Water Tribe. The firebenders were ruthless. Since then, the Fire Nation has conquered most of the world. But the waterbenders are still fighting back, especially in the north. And the Earth Kingdom is still holding strong. We hope.
We get some more talking, and then again we have an example of the exposition where Katara says nobody visits the other nations anymore.
I had friends in the Fire Nation. I used to visit them.
No one visits other nations now. We're only friends with our own kind.
I wish we would just be shown this. I wish we would show the nations being distrustful of one another instead of just being told, oh yeah, like the nations don't really talk to each other anymore. Like we're all super separated. I wish they would show that. They don't really show us anything. We're just told everything. And then we get to the scene where Katara and Aang approach the Fire Navy ship. Now, like I mentioned before, in the cartoon, Katara and Aang actually board this Fire Navy ship, which was a really important scene. Katara, being the mature, nurturing character that she is, tells Aang that, like, they shouldn't go on the ship. You know, it could still be booby-trapped. There could still be dangerous things on it. Like, it's a Fire Navy ship. The Fire Nation attacked her home, took away her mother. She understands the danger of the Fire Navy ship. Aang does not. Aang hasn't been around the past 100 years. He doesn't know about the war with the Fire Nation. So Aang sees a Fire Navy ship and he's like, well, let's just go play on it, right? Because he's a little kid. I thought this was a really good moment that really showed their personalities. Aang showed that he was a little kid and he just saw, and he's naive, and he saw this ship and thought it was like a playground. Katara, craving some fun in her life, decides to go with him against her better judgment, and they do run into booby traps. And this is the moment where Aang really learns that he's been gone for 100 years. It's a really serious scene. They discover that Aang really is the last airbender, that he's been gone for 100 years, among this dangerous Fire Navy ship where they set off a booby trap, where they have to flee, where Zuko sees them fleeing. It's a very intense moment. There's a lot of things that could go wrong here. And the adaptation, they don't go on the Fire Navy ship, they're just talking. They don't really do anything, they just talk.
I'm trying to get better, but I'm the only waterbender left in the Southern Tribe. And Sokka doesn't like it when I practice because he's worried that the Fire Nation will find out, and there's a reason. I'm the only waterbender left in the village. They've killed all the others. Sokka just doesn't understand. I'm a warrior. I should be able to do more for our people.
Aang learns that he's the last airbender and that he's been gone for 100 years because he talks with Gran. She talks about the legend, and she just tells Aang, oh, you must have been gone for 100 years.
You say you went down in the storm?
Came upon us suddenly. The weather went crazy just after I left home. The Southern Air Temple, well, not all the air nomads, but most of them had just arrived for the Great Comet Festival.
The Great Comet Festival. Water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Everyone in the village knows this story. But you don't, do you, young man? Because you've been trapped in that ice this whole time. The last time that the Great Comet was seen in the sky was 100 years ago. He may seem like just a boy, but he's much more. He is the last airbender.
They don't learn this in any sort of intense peril situation. They just say it. In the second episode of the cartoon, Zuko with some soldiers approaches the tribe and threatens all of them, demanding to know where Aang is. The tribe refuses to say anything to protect him, and Aang chooses to swoop in to protect the tribe and reveals, yes, I'm the one you're looking for.
Looking for me?
You're the airbender? You're the Avatar?
Aang?
No way.
And everybody reacts accordingly, like they didn't know he was the Avatar until Aang chose to reveal it to them in order to protect everyone. In the adaptation, Gran just casually says, by the way, you're the Avatar, and no sort of intense, dangerous reveal, just casually drops this information.
He's more than the last airbender, aren't you? You are the Avatar.
Katara and Sokka just find out he's the Avatar because Gran said so, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess he's the Avatar. Like, it takes away the agency, it takes away the magnitude of the reveal. In this adaptation, through a much less intense scene from the cartoon, Aang gets captured. Aang gets thrown in, like, the prison on Zuko's ship, and then Uncle Iroh goes up to talk to him, which I thought was really weird.
There are many who never imagined this day would ever come, myself included. Others believe that true stability in this world can only happen under our rule. So the drive to conquer is a drive for peace.
But peace comes from respecting life, not killing and destroying.
A noble sentiment, Avatar. But in the end, for most of us, it doesn't matter how this war started. And the belief is that by capturing you, the Fire Nation can finally bring that about.
Iroh just straight up goes to Aang and is like, yeah, I think the war is stupid. I don't think that the Fire Nation should take over the world, but like, shh, nobody's supposed to know that, all right? It's just between you and me. I thought Iroh liked keeping his cards close to his chest. Obviously in the cartoon, Iroh supported Aang and he wanted to root for Aang, but for him to just so blatantly go out and support Aang over the Fire Nation right off the bat was pretty shocking. And then Aang manages to get off the ship, like, no problem, zero problem whatsoever.
Stop! Stop him!
In the cartoon, when Aang gets captured on Zuko's ship, he tries his darndest to get off of there. He almost manages to through a lot of hard work, and then Zuko manages to knock him back down. The only reason Aang managed to escape in the cartoon is through the use of the Avatar state. It was our very first time seeing Aang use the Avatar state, and it showed how powerful it was, because there really isn't any way Aang would have managed to get off that ship if it wasn't for the Avatar state. So that is our introduction to how powerful that state really is. And in the adaptation, Aang he manages to get off the ship, like, without a hitch. Zuko does throw a fire blast at him as he's flying away, which Katara manages to, like, block with a big wave of water bending that she really shouldn't be able to do yet. She's supposed to be really bad at water bending. She really shouldn't be able to make a big move like that until later on in the show. But, like, okay, whatever. Instead of using the Avatar state for Aang to get off of the ship, the show makes Aang's first trip into the Avatar state when he returns to his temple and sees Gyatso, which is what happens in the cartoon. This first episode of the adaptation follows the first 3 episodes of the cartoon. In the 3rd episode of the cartoon, we do see the gang return to Aang's home and see everything desolate and empty and sad. And Aang sees the dead body of his beloved teacher. And it's such an emotional state of turmoil for him that he goes into the Avatar state because he just feels so strongly. And in the cartoon, I thought this scene really worked because the rest of that episode had been pretty lighthearted. I mean, you knew it was pretty dark, all these people in the Air Temple had died, but the tone of the episode was very lighthearted up until that point.
Hey, come back! Come on out, little lemur. That hungry guy won't bother you anymore. Firebenders? They were here?
What I would kind of compare this to is that one scene in Mulan where they're singing about a girl worth fighting for, and it's all jovial and they're all just chatting about having a great time, laughing together, and then the song ends with them stumbling upon a war scene and your stomach just drops. Like this scene was so well crafted. The lighthearted nature of the song just being abruptly cut off by this very serious interruption was brilliant, and it really made you feel what toll it was taking. And I feel like that's the sort of atmosphere, the sort of effect that the cartoon was able to capture so readily, but something that the adaptation struggled with, because the rest of the episode had been really dark and serious, and so then when Aang gets sent into the Avatar state, it isn't this abrupt shift. It's like, you could have kind of seen this coming. In the cartoon, we get another important character agency moment where Katara chooses to reach out to Aang.
What happened?
He found out firebenders killed Gyatso.
Oh no! I'm gonna try and calm him down.
Well, do it before he blows us off the mountain.
Aang, I know you're upset. And I know how hard it is to lose the people you love. Monk Gyatso and the other airbenders may be gone. But you still have a family. Sokka and I, we're your family now.
We see Katara's motherly, nurturing nature come out. She's protective, she's brave, she reaches out to Aang, and she makes that connection with him. And we just don't get that in the adaptation. Aang just comes out of the Avatar state naturally on his own. He doesn't need to be pulled back by Katara. Again, it's like they take away all of these moments from the cartoon that gave the characters agency.
What's happening? What is he doing?
You will always be my friend.
And that's where the episode ends. And this first episode, you guys, did not excite me. It, in fact, made me very upset and very trepidatious about how the rest of the season was gonna go. I watched this episode with my dad and my sister, and I didn't really make any comments on the episode while we were watching it, because I thought, you know what, maybe I'll just be cynical because I just love animation so much, and I already wasn't looking forward to a live action adaptation, so I'll just see what their reactions are, because they seem to really be looking forward to it. But my sister, throughout the entire episode, kept turning to me and making this face. As for how the characters themselves were portrayed, easily the best one that we got to see was Sokka. Despite the fact that they took away an important character flaw for Sokka, the actor did an amazing job. He felt like he was born to play Sokka.
Oh my. Nice. We're not gonna die. Whoa. What are you doing?
You're not thinking of leaving him.
Katara, a strange glowy iceberg just exploded and left behind a mysterious little bald person. What part of that makes you think, great, let's bring him home?
We can't just leave him out here.
I don't like this. Why listen to me? I'm just responsible for the safety of the village.
He captured that snarky humor so well. He felt like he was Sokka to me. And any time that he does make a cartoonish quip, he manages to deliver the lines in such a way that it doesn't take me out of the moment, like it does with some other characters. So Sokka is easily a 10 out of 10. Aang is not too bad. I don't think he's perfect. I think Aang is just a really hard character to bring into a live action adaptation. You know, in a cartoon, when you are animating things specifically, you deliberately choose how to animate each of his movements to make him seem more like an airbender, more light and more playful. And I think the actor for Aang gives a really good performance, but there's just something like lacking, something that's like not quite there, something that was so lovable and earnest about Aang that I just don't really sense in this portrayal of him. And I don't think it's anything against the actor. I think it's just the screenwriting and the direction that he's given. Then we have Katara. I think Katara is terrible in this show. And again, this is nothing against the actress. I mean, no hate towards the actress. It's more just the writing and the directing. Throughout this show, for some reason, they chose to just take everything that made cartoon Katara great and throw it in the garbage, okay?
Don't worry. No one could see me. Not that it matters. There's nothing to see. An otter penguin could bend more water than I could.
She isn't stubborn, headstrong, sassy. She never has a temper. She's just like a calm, well-mannered, shy girl. It's boring and it's shocking. The fact that the showrunners took away Sokka's sexism, yet chose to take away a lot of Katara's strong attributes, it's mind-boggling to me, you guys. This show hasn't been greenlit for a second season yet. I'm pretty sure it will get a second season because of how many people, like me, watched it purely out of the curiosity and not because it was actually good. But if they do make a second season, I'm really worried for Toph. I do not trust these writers to tackle Toph in a very mature and nuanced way. I get the feeling that in a season 2, they would decide to take away Toph's blind jokes because they would probably think it's like insensitive, which would be a complete misunderstanding of Toph's character.
There it is! That's what it will sound like when one of you spots it.
Toph is very secure and comfortable in her blindness. She doesn't see it as a weakness. It's something that she can just joke about because she's not insecure about it. She's secure with who she is as a person, which is one of her big character attributes.
It's so dark down here. I can't see a thing.
Oh no, what a nightmare.
Sorry.
She's not strong despite being blind. She's strong because she's blind. And when she gets upset, it's because people are treating her as if she's weak, when in actuality, she worked hard to discover her own strength. These jokes that she tells are part of how Toph chooses to express her desire to be treated like anyone else, by not making it a taboo topic that they need to dance around. It's just a normal part of her daily life, and she wouldn't have it any other way. I feel like that's a nuance that the writers just wouldn't understand and wouldn't be able to handle properly. Yeah, I think Katara is just not great. Again, nothing against the actress, but this just isn't Katara to me. She's just kind of blah. She's not really much of a character at all in this show. It's really disappointing. So that's the first episode. The first episode of the adaptation is an accumulation of the first 3 episodes of the cartoon, plus all of Aang's backstory moments from episode 12. So judging based off of that, I thought that each episode after that was just gonna be like 3 episodes combined into 1. I thought that's kind of the route they were gonna go with. And it's not the route that they went with, which I do appreciate. They do try to condense and mix some of the episodes together in a creative way that I think could have worked if they focused on the right story beats. Like, I think the way that they tried to tackle condensing season 1 into 8 episodes, I think they had the right direction going with it, but I think they just made some really weird choices on what they decided to focus on and what they chose to throw out. They threw out a lot of episodes related to character agency. Here's the thing. If you recreate a show without any differences, there's no point in its existence. A remake that's currently airing that I love is Shogun, which more than proves its worth. The original show has always been near and dear to my heart, but it has a very different storytelling perspective. While the original focuses more on the main character and his own personal view of Japan, the remake gives far more depth on the surrounding world and history and focuses on the perspective of the Japanese. Both are very, very good, and I think that they work well together as complements, like two halves of a whole, rather than one just simply trying to be an improved version of the other. I realize that this whole video is me comparing the remake to the cartoon, but that's because this remake isn't a compliment to the cartoon at all and provides little value on its own. unlike Shogun. So, after episode 1 is episode 2, which entirely focuses on one episode from the cartoon, which is episode 4, The Warriors of Kyoshi. This is a beloved episode from the cartoon. Everybody loves Suki. There's some really fun character dynamics featured in this episode. I thought this episode was a lot better. I feel like because the show got all of the exposition out of the way, they felt more free to actually explore the characters a bit more. But again, they took out a lot of important character moments, and I think they did drag on a lot of scenes that they really didn't need to focus as much on. The cartoon episode goes like this. Aang wants to go to Kyoshi Island to ride an elephant koi, and for no other reason, because he is a child, and he just wants to have fun, and he heard that there's a really big fish he can ride at Kyoshi Island, and so he wants to go there to ride said fish.
Look! That's why we're here. Elephant koi, and I'm gonna ride it.
He doesn't think through the consequences of his actions, and he gets in trouble with another bigger fish. And while he's not paying attention, they get kidnapped by the Warriors of Kyoshi. We meet the Warriors of Kyoshi and see that they're all ladies, something that Sokka is astounded by because where he came from, a female warrior just wasn't really heard of. He wasn't used to it. So while he's making some sexist comments, Aang shows everybody that he is the Avatar. And everybody there is majorly impressed, and we find out that this is Kyoshi Island, an island where one of the previous avatars resided. And Avatar Kyoshi is a fan favorite. She's also my favorite. I love Avatar Kyoshi. In this episode, Aang and Sokka both go through quite a bit of character development. Aang knows that the Fire Nation is on his heels, that Zuko's looking for him, and that he shouldn't stay in one place too long, but he chooses to remain on Kyoshi Island for much longer than he should because he's addicted to the attention.
It's great here. They're giving us the royal treatment.
Hey, don't get too comfortable. It's risky for us to stay in one place for very long.
I'm sure we'll be fine. Besides, did you see how happy I'm making this town? They're even cleaning up that statue in my honor.
Well, it's nice to see you excited about being the Avatar. I just hope it doesn't all go to your head.
Since he is the Avatar, all of the girls on the island are giving him plenty of attention, and he just can't help himself. And so he puts the entire island in danger due to his desire for attention. A really childish and immature decision, which makes sense because he is just a kid. Sokka, on the other hand, like I mentioned before, is sexist towards Suki and the other Kyoshi warriors. He doesn't understand how there can be female warriors, and he tries to upshow them with his warrior skills. And he gets easily taken down by Suki. He's embarrassed about this at first, but then he sucks up his pride and he returns. And he's like, you know what? I was wrong. You guys are badasses. Like, can you teach me how to fight like you? And they teach him, and he learns from these women how to fight better. It's a really important character moment for him. The episode ends with Prince Zuko finding them on the island. Sokka fights better because of his training with the Kyoshi warriors, and Aang learns that he has to make these mature decisions where he isn't putting other people in danger. In the adaptation, we don't really get either of these arcs. Aang wants to go to Kyoshi Island, not to ride the elephant koi for fun, but because he wants to learn more about how to control the Avatar state. In this adaptation, Zuko had a notebook containing all of the information he could find about the Avatars, which Aang stole, presumably so the writers could have an easy way for Aang to learn about Avatar things without having to actually give us any creative instances of him finding out about it. He'll just read it in a book.
Kyoshi Island is only a few hours from here. According to this, Avatar Kyoshi was the fiercest of warriors and a master of what they call the Avatar state.
So yeah, Aang reads that he can talk to Avatar Kyoshi on Kyoshi Island. So they go to Kyoshi Island. They just hop on over from point A to point B. There's no fiddling in between. Aang does end up having a few moments with the residents on this island where they are enamored by him and he does get some attention, but it never goes to his head. Like, Katara acknowledges this scene as like a, wow, Aang is really good with people. He knows how to bring hope to people.
Gotta admit, he has a way with people. He knows how to connect. Get through to people like he did last night. That's his real power. Connection. Building bridges. That's how he's gonna be the Avatar.
So Aang doesn't really have any sort of character flaw that he needs to overcome in this episode, unfortunately. And then we have Sokka. Now, Sokka does not make any sexist comments. The fact that the Kyoshi warriors are women is never brought up. I think that they did a really good job of handling this regardless. Like, if being sexist wasn't an important part of Sokka's whole arc and theme, I wouldn't mind this at all. Even though Sokka doesn't have that sort of arc with Suki, they do something very similar, where Sokka is still cocky and he still does kind of try to show off his fighter skills to Suki, and she shows him up. And they focus on her pride not stemming from the fact that she's a female warrior, but rather the fact that she's not just a warrior, she's a Kyoshi warrior. Like, she's proud of her culture and her heritage.
It's a big responsibility, all these people's lives in your hands. Personally, I take that responsibility very seriously. I'm the guardian of my village, too, so. The point is, we have a lot in common. We're both warriors, right?
Before she died, Avatar Kyoshi trained an elite force in her image. That tradition has been passed down through the generations, and it is now my honor to protect this community and to uphold the values of the Avatar. That is why I'm not just a warrior, I'm a Kyoshi warrior.
Which I think was honestly a really good route to go. I think that since they didn't want to focus on the sexism angle, I think this was the best angle to go with. I think they still handled these scenes in a good way.
I could run you through the basics if you want. Wow, that was pretty good. That was pretty good.
They still tried to have Sokka learn a lesson where he still needed to learn things from Suki. It was downplayed a lot. Sokka wasn't as much of a show-off, and Suki wasn't as snarky to him. In fact, Suki feels really different in this episode all around. Not in a good way, in my opinion. I love the actress that they chose for Suki. I think she looks a lot like Suki. I think she sounds like Suki. And I think that she could capture the attitude of Suki, but for some reason she just doesn't have attitude. It's the same problem that the Katara has, where she's not sassy or snarky, or she's just kind of calm and quiet, and she's shy, which was just so unlike cartoon Suki. I was really surprised.
Go! Someone needs to put a bell on you.
There's food in the village hall.
Oh! Seriously? Bell, think about it. Made it myself.
They also changed the village leader to be Suki's mom instead of just some random man, which is like, it's fine, I guess. I don't have any major feelings regarding this. I don't think it was necessary. I think, again, it could take away from some of Suki's agency. Like, she would choose not to go with Sokka because her mom wouldn't approve of it, instead of just her personally believing that she belongs on Kyoshi Island. There's kind of this vibe in the air of her mom's approval and Suki constantly wondering if this is something her mom would approve of, when I don't think that's something Suki needs.
Is this what it's like to have people from the outside here?
You don't remember the days when the war raged all around us. There's a reason we've avoided that all these years.
Avoided. We've avoided a lot of things by living the way we do.
Be that as it may, we've stayed safe.
But I do appreciate that they were trying to incorporate more relationships with the characters, and that they did want Suki to have a relationship with the leader of the tribe. Whereas I didn't really like any of the changes that they made in the last episode. I do appreciate quite a few changes that they made in this episode. I can appreciate where they were going with them. We do get to meet General Zhao this episode.
Funny. That's not what I'd heard. I understand you had an unexpected visitor just the other day.
You must be mistaken. We like keeping to ourselves.
I've heard. Yes, I've heard Kyoshi Island has had an admirable history of staying, shall we say, insignificant.
Which is interesting. Both Zhao and Zuko end up on the island.
I warned you. No one's going to stand in my way.
At first, I thought the actor for Zhao wasn't too shabby. My opinion on that changes in a couple of episodes, and you'll see why. All right, so how I feel with the actors for Uncle Iroh and Zuko, I don't hate them. Uncle Iroh, I don't think is quite the right fit. I don't think he quite captures the wise yet goofy demeanor of Iroh properly. In this show, it feels like they can't figure out the tone for Iroh's character. They give him a lot of scenes where he's like ogling over food and silly things, which he does do in the cartoon. But in the adaptation, it just feels so cartoon-ish that it kind of takes you out of it because everything else is serious and realistic. And then you just have Iroh acting like a cartoon character in the corner.
Calm yourself, Prince Zuko. One thing you must learn is how to get what you want without divulging your true intentions. You must use your tact, your empathy. But most importantly, you need to have sticky rice.
What are you doing?
Trying some Omashu barbecue. It's not often you get the opportunity.
Where have you been?
Apologies. I got distracted watching a game of Pai Sho. The street players in these parts are quite good.
I'm sure they are. Now, let's go.
They didn't follow the expected tactics.
But I don't hate his portrayal. Iroh's not too bad. Zuko, I don't have a problem necessarily with the actor they chose for Zuko. I have a problem, I think, more with how he may have been directed.
No, you listen. I'm not gonna sit by and watch a bunch of hacks who couldn't even program a damn alarm clock ruin my father's company. My father is a great man.
In the animation, Zuko was overconfident and hot-headed and serious and cynical, and he was intimidating. Zuko in the cartoon was intimidating. In this adaptation, Zuko does not intimidate me. He sounds like a petulant, whiny child.
I can alert my contacts.
No! I told you, no one else can know of his existence.
In this scene, Zuko is telling Zhao not to talk about the Avatar's return. He's acting like Iroh is going to tell everybody about his secret 4th grade crush. It doesn't feel intense or intimidating at all. It feels silly. I just can't take Zuko seriously in this adaptation. But yeah, I thought this episode was better. I think it did feel long. I feel like a lot of the scenes kind of dragged out more than they needed to. Again, they show Ozai in this episode, which I already explained why I think that's a mistake. I think my favorite thing about this episode was the costume and set designs. All of the costumes in this look absolutely stunning and gorgeous. You can tell that they really wanted to go for accurate cultural representation. I think all of the outfits are gorgeous. I think that all of the sets are beautiful. Like, this episode is beautiful to look at. This episode did feel like it had a major tone shift from the previous episode, which I do like the tone in this episode better. It does align more with the cartoon, but it was just kind of jarring. The last episode was much darker, much more serious. This episode had way more jokes. And then I mentioned earlier how at the end of this episode, we meet Fire Lord Ozai and why I think that's a problem. But he's not the only one we meet, because at the end of this episode, we also meet Azula. And I think this is also a really poor decision. Because here's the thing, in the cartoon, our season 1 villain is Admiral Zhao. We don't see Azula at all except for a flashback for the first season. She's mentioned, like the Fire Lord, she's this figure looming in the distance, this intimidating person that we know we don't want to meet yet. And we just deal with Zhao for the first season. He's our season 1 enemy. The second season is a build-up, it's a jump to an even scarier villain. Zhao is dangerous, but he doesn't even come close to Azula. Azula is terrifying. You see Azula, and you're immediately about to piss your pants. You don't want to go anywhere near her. She's crazy, she's powerful, she's a great season 2 villain. And then, in the third season, our villain is Fire Lord Ozai. So we get that slow build-up from Zhao to Azula to Ozai. I think it's important for Azula to be the season 2 villain. I don't think she needs to be in the first season. And we don't just see Azula at the end of episode 2. She's featured a lot in this season through a lot of choices that I just don't think need to be made. I don't think Azula should have been in this first season at all, and if they did want her the first season, I don't think she should have been as prominent of a character. And I will elaborate further on that as we get to it. We do get this scene where Katara is reading from a waterbending scroll and is practicing her waterbending move, the Water Whip. If you've seen the cartoon, we know of the waterbending scroll and the Water Whip from episode 9, the waterbending scroll. A very important episode for Katara's character. In that episode, Katara blatantly stole a waterbending scroll from some pirates so that she could improve her waterbending. Katara stealing this waterbending scroll was again a choice made by her that put the group in danger, and she did it anyways because she is determined and unafraid. And then she spends the majority of the episode trying to practice the water whip, and she can't do it, and Aang is able to do it effortlessly. In this episode, we see a lot of her immaturity.
I just want to try this one move first, and then it's all yours. Here, hold it open for me. The single water whip. Looks doable. What's so funny? Aang will get his turn once I figure out the water whip.
You just gotta shift your way through the stances. There. See? The key to bending is...
Will you please shut your air hole? Believe it or not, your infinite wisdom gets a little old sometimes. Why don't we just throw the scroll away since you're so naturally gifted?
Guys, it is important that we see how immature these characters are in the first season of the cartoon. Because when you get to the third season and they're much more wise and much more mature, it's like they've all grown up. It's really special. If you just start off with all the characters already being mature, there's no growth to be had. There's no character development available. We don't see Katara steal the waterbending scroll, and we don't see her get impatient and huffy and blow a fuse towards Aang because he's able to pick up the water whip better than she is.
Amazing! You're natural.
Well, these are just the easy forms.
Well, you caught on quickly. You're a real waterbender, Katara.
Katara is also useless this episode. When you see Zuko coming for Aang, she's kind of flailing about uselessly. They want to make Katara powerful, but you can't just make her powerful right off the bat. She needs to learn things. She's still a character, right? So Katara's struggling to learn how to do the water whip is important for her. The fact that they just have her be able to effortlessly pull it off is weak and lame and boring. The second half of the episode focuses around Zuko hiring the pirates to help capture the Avatar, and like, yeah, the rest of that's not really necessary to be shown in the adaptation. It just feels like another missed opportunity to have agency, to have Katara make mistakes and show a lot of her immature character flaws. So yeah, that episode gets skipped. It gets scrapped entirely. While episode 1 of the adaptation compiled the first 3 episodes of the cartoon, and while episode 2 focused on episode 4 of the cartoon, episode 3 is where they really start to kind of jump all over and grab bits and pieces from all over the show. Episode 3 is called Omashu. It takes place in Omashu, but it goes a lot differently from how the animated episode went. In the animated episode, the gang show up at Omashu, a place that Aang used to visit 100 years ago, where he was friends with a kid named Bumi. While in the city of Omashu, the gang gets themselves captured for being reckless, and we meet the king of Omashu. He's shown to be pretty crazy, and he puts Aang through a series of tests while putting Sokka and Katara's lives on the line. And it's honestly just kind of a fun, quirky episode. It's revealed at the end that the king of Omashu is King Bumi, Aang's old buddy from 100 years ago, which I thought was really cute. And I really like Bumi. I think he's a really fun character. He's in a couple more episodes throughout the series. He's always a joy when he's around, and I love him. And luckily, we do get him in the adaptation, and I think this is the best performance in the entire show. Like, this actor that plays King Boomy is King Boomy. He takes the character's role and he runs with it.
Pine bark? What idiot told you to put pine bark in it?
You did.
Throw him a feast.
Throw them a feast.
Short ribs from Kangaroo Island. They practically jump into your mouth.
Kangaroo Island, eh? I hear that place is really hopping.
Let us leave.
You can't keep us here. Let us leave.
Let us leave?
I want this man to send me his autograph because I am just so impressed with his portrayal. He's amazing. The only reason I would ever want a season 2 or 3 of this stupid adaptation is so that we could get more King Boomy. But yeah, that's pretty much what happens in the cartoon episode. They show up in Omashu, they get captured, the king puts them through some tests, and then they're off on their merry way. This episode goes pretty different. They arrive in Omashu, and in Omashu, we meet Tio. From episode 17 of the cartoon, the Northern Air Temple, an episode that they tried to integrate into the adaptation, and I think they integrated the wrong things. In the cartoon, this episode is another big moment for Aang. The gang hears that there's people flying around at the Northern Air Temple, and Aang gets really excited about this. He thinks that, oh, maybe some airbenders survived at the Northern Air Temple. So the gang flies out there. Aang's really excited. He sees people flying in the air. And then wait a second. He sees that these aren't airbenders. These are just people with gliders. And he gets very disappointed. The residents there are happy to see Aang. They're happy to see the group. And they show them around their home. And throughout it all, we see that this new group has settled into this abandoned air temple. And they've wrecked a lot of it. You know, they've built over a lot of things, destroyed a lot of important pieces of the temple, and Aang is very upset about it. He feels like they're destroying a lot of important representations of his culture. He doesn't like how they're treating the temple. He doesn't like that they're flying when they're not airbenders. Aang doesn't like anything about this. But over the course of this episode, while Tio and his father, the mechanist, who basically built a city and all of the inventions, fend off the Fire Nation, Aang changes his mind. He sees that it's not the same, but that these people put life into this temple that was otherwise abandoned.
I'm really glad you guys all live here now. I realized it's like the hermit crab. Maybe you weren't born here, but you found this empty shell and made it your home. And now you protect each other.
That means a lot, coming from you.
New life is growing there, and it's a callback to a couple episodes previous of this one, where a fire had been burned down. But he was hopeful because the acorns in the ground would plant new trees, a new forest would bloom.
These acorns are everywhere, Aang. That means the forest will grow back. Every one of these will be a tall oak tree someday.
In the same sense, this abandoned temple became new. New people arrived, created their own home there. It was a callback to a previous episode, and it was an important episode that showed Aang's mentality and showed some growth on his part. Now, none of the Northern Air Temple aspects are integrated into the adaptation. We don't see the Northern Air Temple at all. I think that the actor for Tio, and especially his father, are perfect. They did great, no complaints there. But it kind of feels like the characters are just there as cameos. Tio can fly on a glider, but he never feels upset to see this other person gliding through the air when they're not an airbender, which I thought was pretty weird.
You're not an airbender.
An airbender? Of course I'm not.
They do keep the fact that the mechanist, Tio's dad, is secretly working for the Fire Nation. And I do like that they keep Sokka's relationship with the mechanist in Sokka being an engineer. Sokka throughout the show is shown to be very intelligent, not very wise, but very intelligent. And I like his relationship with the Mechanist. I think it's cool that Sokka has this capability to be an engineer.
And if you add plates here and a vent here, all you need to do is install a bleed valve to regulate pressure.
Ah, very clever. The world is filled with warriors, but there are far too few great engineers.
But yeah, I feel like they took the two major characters from the Northern Air Temple episode, but they didn't really keep the major plot and theme of that episode, which kind of felt out of place to me. So not only are we on Omashu, and we have a couple characters from the Northern Air Temple, but they also friggin' Jet!
Wait. Who are you?
You can call me Jet.
Yes, we meet Jet in this episode. Jet, I think, is great. I also love the actor that plays Jet. I thought he had some really funny, quirky moments.
Irrigation, am I right?
My brother-in-law would agree if he could speak. Struck mute at birth.
You'd be amazed at how much he can say without words.
I thought he had good chemistry with the cast. I thought he was a lot of fun. Him flirting with Katara did feel really weird to me. The age gap between Jet and Katara felt a lot more prominent here, which was pretty weird.
Sorry. It's out of the turnip sack. Sure you can make that look good too. Oh, it wasn't a great crop this month. She told me I wasn't watering the turnips enough. Knew there was a reason I married her.
But I think that the way they portrayed Jet was great. And they had Smellerbee and Longshot and Pipsqueak and everyone. I thought that was pretty great. So basically the plot of this third episode is the gang arrives at Omashu, and it's not quite as amazing as Aang had remembered. You know, Aang was there 100 years ago, so he had different memories of it. But now they come back and it's full of Fire Nation spies and thugs, I guess. I don't know. It's just not up to par. They're a little disappointed by it. But then they meet Tio and his Mechanist dad, who makes some really cool inventions. In the adaptation, they change it so that the Mechanist is the one who invented the chutes for Omashu, which I thought was clever. I thought that was cute. Except one thing that's weird about the live action adaptation that I noticed is that the chutes somehow defy gravity and go uphill, which they don't really explain how that works, because that's not what happened in the cartoon. In the cartoon, the chutes would go downhill, and then the earthbenders would, like, shoot up the cargo, like, vertically, up like a tunnel, and then it would go up and then down.
This is the Omashu delivery system. Miles and miles of tubes and chutes. Earthbending brings the packages up, and gravity brings them down.
The chutes would just go up because gravity doesn't really work that way. And it doesn't seem like there's any sort of like electronic railings, like a roller coaster pushing this thing up. So I really don't know if the writers just watched that episode of the cartoon and they just were like, oh yeah, the chutes go up and down, and the writers just forgot about gravity. And then after we meet Tio and the Mechanist from the Northern Air Temple episode, we get confirmation that the man that we met earlier was Jet. He takes Katara to his freedom fighters hideout, introduces it all to her. They tried to tie together these three episodes by saying, you know, Omashu is really run down, and the Mechanist is trying to create inventions that'll help Omashu rise to power, while simultaneously providing dangerous weapon plans to the Fire Nation spies. And while that's happening, Jet and the Freedom Fighters are trying to drive out the Fire Nation spies. That's kind of how they try to combine these three episodes and have all of these three things exist at the same time. And it kind of works and it kind of doesn't. So the big scene that accumulates is basically that Jet showed Katara the Mechanist conspiring with the Fire Nation spies. And so Katara's like, oh no, the Mechanist is evil. He's the one who's been bombing the city. Yeah, there's been like bombs happening in the city. I guess that contributes to its poor quality. At the same time, while Jet was showing Katara the evil plotting between the Mechanist and the Fire Nation spies, Tio and Aang go into a cave and discover the blasting jelly that's been used for bombings around Omashu. And they find like a tarp. They connect the tarp to Jet. So Aang brings the blasting jelly and the tarp back to Sokka. Katara comes into the house being like, oh my god, the Mechanist is a traitor. And Aang and Sokka are saying, oh my god, Jet is a traitor. And so then they're arguing over who's really behind all of the evil going on in Omashu.
Teo and I found where the bombers have been getting their explosives. They're making blasting jelly in a cave up on the mountain. We also found these. The ropes from the turnip cart.
So it wasn't the firebenders behind the explosion? It was...
You're not gonna believe this. I know who's behind the bombings. What? No, Jet's not the bad guy. Sai is.
Are you kidding me? Sai's done nothing but help us. Well, Jet's a con artist who lied to our faces.
He didn't lie. He's fighting the firebenders and he has to protect himself.
Basically, it's both of them. Basically, the Mechanist is providing weapons plans to the Fire Nation spies, and Jet is bombing all of these areas to try to flush out the Fire Nation spies. So that's fun. Sokka yells at Katara when she defends Jet, and she's like, fine, you don't believe me? I'm gonna go get proof that Jet isn't a bad guy. She goes up to Jet, and Jet just straight up tells her he's the bad guy.
Jet, listen, we need to talk.
Sure. But later. We just launched a big mission. Things might get a little hot for us around here.
Mission? What mission?
I mean, you were there when we confirmed the Mechanist was a traitor. We took care of his partners. Now we need to take care of him. I told you. We know how to take out the garbage.
Jet reveals that the Mechanist has a meeting with the king, and right now his current plan is to put explosives on the Mechanist, and when the Mechanist unknowingly brings these explosives up to the king, he'll have one of his freedom fighters blow up the box, simultaneously blowing up the Mechanist and the King of Omashu. And you might be wondering, what did the King of Omashu do? And the answer is nothing. Jet's just a bad guy. Jet says he wants to kill the King of Omashu, basically to cure the city's disease at its heart, which just doesn't really make sense, Jet. Like, I could understand Jet wanting to blow up the Mechanist and trying to blow up the Fire Nation spies, but I really don't know what he has against the king. So Katara learns about this, and she's like, oh no, I don't want that to happen. And she goes up to find Sokka, and she tells Sokka, oh no, you were right, Jet's evil. And these sequences of events happen literally one right after the other. Sokka tells Katara that she's wrong. Katara confronts Jet. Jet tells her that Sokka was right and he is the bad guy. And so she walks back to Sokka and says, Sokka, you are right. Jet's the bad guy.
Innocent people are gonna die, Jet.
That's the price of freedom.
It's too late. There's nothing you can do to stop it.
You were right. Shut up and gloat later. Right now, we need to stop Sai.
So then Katara, Sokka, and Aang all exit to try to save the king and the Mechanist, and oh no, Zuko is there. So Aang stays behind to fight Zuko while Katara and Sokka go to stop this big bombing. And a very underwhelming scene is basically one of the freedom fighters, Longshot, is shooting a flaming arrow into the explosive box to blow it up, and Katara just uses water bending to put out the fire on the arrow.
Oh no.
Protect the king!
It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. The plan goes off without a hitch. Meanwhile, Aang and Zuko are fighting, and they cause a big commotion, and the Omashu guards come over because of the commotion, and Zuko and Iroh start sneaking away. To me, it seems like they are pretty easily sneaking away. Like, there's no reason for the Omashu guards to suspect them of anything. Yet, for some reason, Iroh, like, shoves Zuko out of the way and is like, don't worry, I'll take care of this, and shoots fire into the sky to attract the attention of the guards.
Go! Save yourself!
What?
For the Fire Nation!
So there was literally no reason for Iroh to do that. But okay, so that happens, and Aang gets captured too. And that's basically how the episode goes. I do like that they're trying to condense the episodes together in a creative way. You know, they're trying to find ways to tie in these things like, oh, the Mechanists are working for the Fire Nation and Jet works against the Fire Nation. And what if the Fire Nation is an Omashu? And so they're trying to find a way to connect everything, but it doesn't feel connected enough. It feels like they just had Jet and they had Tio and the Mechanist and they just happened to be an Omashu. I just don't think they blended it together seamlessly enough. I think part of what made these characters so special had to do with their episodes, right? If you take Tio and the Mechanist out of the Northern Air Temple episode, you don't really understand what makes the Mechanists quite so special. If you take Jet out of his episode, you don't quite get the same shocking reveal and the understanding, I guess, of where Jet is coming from. Like, in the cartoon, Jet is bad. He's, like, not a great person, but at least his reasoning makes a lot more sense. In the cartoon episode that features Jet, Aang, Katara, and Sokka are attacked by a group of Fire Nation troops, and Jet and his freedom fighters take out those troops. They save the gang and take them back to their little hideout. Over the course of the episode, we get to see Katara falling for Jet, developing her feelings for him, appreciating what he stands for. Sokka is skeptical of him throughout most of the episode, and then Jet's like, here, come on a mission with me. Like, I'll get you to change your mind. And it does not change Sokka's mind. Jet just wants to attack an old man just because he's part of the Fire Nation, which is pretty bad, and Sokka points that out.
Jet, he's just an old man. He's Fire Nation, search him. But he's not hurting anyone. Have you forgotten that the Fire Nation killed your mother? Remember why you fight. This doesn't feel right.
It's what has to be done.
And he brings this up to Katara, and it's like, Katara, Jet is evil. Like, he just tried to kill an innocent old man. And Jet tries to cover it up by being like, no, see, the old man, he had poison on him. He was gonna assassinate me. All right, that's what you don't understand. And it was like Jet obviously planted that poison. And the big thing in this episode is that there is a Fire Nation village settled near a dam, and Jet wants to blow up the dam so that it will flood the village full of innocent people and murder all of them because they're Fire Nation and he doesn't like the Fire Nation. So, like, it's pretty bad, right? That's a pretty bad thing for Jet to do. But at least there is sort of, like, you understand why he's wanting to do it, right? Because, like, all the Fire Nation are evil in his eyes, but that doesn't make it okay. And something I really liked about this episode is that there were still consequences. Katara tries to stop Jet, but she doesn't manage to stop the dam from being blown up, and she thinks that everybody in the village died.
No.
But luckily, Sokka, lovely Sokka, was able to warn the village in time and get everybody to escape. And so Sokka managed to save all of the village members. This is a really cool episode. I think Jet's a really fascinating character. And I really like the end. I like that the village does still get destroyed, so you still get to feel the impact of Jet's horrible actions and decisions. So yeah, in Jet's episode, he is planning on taking out an entire Fire Nation village. Whereas in this episode, he's wanting to blow up both the Mechanist and the King. And instead of destroying a dam and having that flood entire village, he's just having one of his freedom fighters shoot an arrow at a box. I don't know, the impact doesn't feel the same. I can feel the writers really trying to figure out how to get all these episodes interlaced, and like I said, like it almost works. And I think that the episodes that they picked to try to combine together were good episodes. It just feels like that they were trying to combine so many things into this episode without thinking about how they all relate to each other in the end, because there's no consequences. In the Northern Air Temple episode, there is a major consequence. We learn that the Mechanist has been giving weapons to the Fire Nation. And the consequence of this is that even though he decides not to work with them anymore, they stumble upon his invention of a hot air balloon anyways. And so now, because of that, the Fire Nation in the 3rd season has access to the air, and the Fire Nation uses airships, and it's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty great invention for the Fire Nation that they wouldn't have had if the Mechanist hadn't decided to work with them prior. In Jet's episode, the consequences were that the village still got destroyed. Like, yes, all the people got to get out, which was amazing, but they still lost all their homes. There's still a lot of wreckage from it. In the adaptation episode, there aren't really any consequences. Katara manages to prevent the explosion of the Mechanist and the King, and that's that. They saved the day. There's no consequences for Jet's behavior. And the Mechanist gets no consequences either. There's no invention that the Fire Nation took from him.
Fire Nation engineers created this.
Oh, this isn't our work. No, this comes courtesy of our spies in Omashu.
So, I don't know. It's like they could have just taken this episode out and there really wouldn't have been that much of an impact. In this episode, we also get to see more of Azula, and not just Azula, but also Mei and Ty Lee. They never have an introduction for Mei and Ty Lee, of which I really liked their introductions in the cartoon, but in this adaptation, they're just there, right off the bat, by Azula's side.
He's done the impossible. He's done nothing.
I'm gonna touch on it more on episode 5, where Azula's character just really bothers me, but man, I'm not gelling with this portrayal of Azula. They also introduce this idea where Katara is struggling to waterbend due to traumatic flashbacks of her losing her mom. It was referenced in the previous episode, and this episode really tries to establish it, that she's struggling to waterbend because of her trauma, her fear holding her back. And they just resolve it in this episode. It's not a thing for the rest of the season. I mean, they do bring up her trauma again, but the trauma being a problem with her waterbending, it's like brought up and then resolved, just like that.
I know what it's like to lose family too. It was quiet the night my mom died, until the soldiers came. I try not to think about it, but recently it's been coming back to me. I think it's been affecting my bending.
What do you remember when you think of your mother?
I remember her getting up every morning, and every day she would stop when the sun rose. She would watch and smile every day.
Remember that. Remember the sunrise.
She doesn't really have to go through any sort of long journey to discover how to waterbend again. Jet just tells her to think about happy memories, and she does. And then she can waterbend just fine. So, yep. So that's pretty much all of episode 3. Episode 4 brings in a lot of different things. And some things, I don't know why they spent so much time on them. Episode 4 opens with Aang being imprisoned, and once again, Uncle Iroh talking to imprisoned Aang. Iroh is trying to defend Zuko, and Aang's like, I'm starting to see what kind of person he really is.
It's good to see you, young Avatar.
And Zuko. They capture him too?
I hope not. With any luck, he's probably halfway back to his ship by now.
This is all his fault. He started the fight and left you behind and ran away. I'm really starting to see what kind of person he is.
Like, yeah, Aang, Zuko threatened to murder the entire Southern Water Tribe. He's not a nice guy. And then Uncle Iroh gets taken away, and Aang is brought up to King Boomy, my favorite. I do love King Boomy, but one thing I think is really weird is that they still decided to keep in all of the trials that King Boomy put Aang through. Like in the cartoon, they spent a long time on these different trials that Aang had to go through, these different tests. And they decided to keep that in the adaptation, which kind of feels like a waste of time to me when everything is so condensed and they're really trying to focus on which storytelling aspects to keep. I think it's weird they decided to keep in a bunch of tests that didn't really provide any sort of progression in Aang's character. I just think that time could have been spent on actually developing the characters more. So while Aang is doing these tests with the king, Sokka and Katara want to break into the prison to rescue Aang, and they get there by going through the tunnels of Omashu. The Cave of Two Lovers is an episode from season 2 of Avatar: Last Airbender, when the heroes eventually return to Omashu to find that it was taken over by the Fire Nation. For some reason, they just decide to put the Cave of Two Lovers in here, and I can't think of any reason that they decided to do that other than audience pandering, because Avatar fans love the Cave of Two Lovers. It's a great meme. I'll be on a Discord call, and somebody will mention a tunnel, and all 5 of us will suddenly start simultaneously screaming, "Secret tunnel!" Like, it's great. Everybody loves the Cave of Two Lovers. Everybody loves the secret tunnel, guys. But there is no reason for them to be here. They're a whole season too early. This really just felt like pandering. And the weirdest thing is that they swapped Katara and Sokka. Sokka was getting really into the music and was like vibing with the hippie musicians. And Katara was serious and was like, Sokka, what are you doing? Like, we don't have time for this.
Jewel of my heart, jewel of my heart, yeah.
Oh, don't let the cave-in get you down.
They must only light up in the dark. That's how the two lovers found each other. They just put out their lights and followed the crystals. That must be the way out.
Put out your light. Well, what do you know? Love is brightest in the dark. You have to let it get dark so you can follow the light. That's how you find the path.
The light of crystals?
I don't know why they did that. They just completely swapped it. Sokka is the carefree loose guy now, and Katara is Mrs. Stuck-Up, I guess. It feels like the writers don't really understand the characters. And Katara starts complaining to Sokka about pretty much everything. And then she complains that Sokka is treating her like a little girl. But the thing is, Katara has been acting like a little girl so far this entire show. Katara has not really been mature or independent or whatever. Like, she's been a child, and they have a really contrived fight over it.
It said love is brightest in the dark, not glowy rocks.
Poetic license. Love is all you need. Love makes the world go round.
Now you're listening to the minstrels?
Katara, what is your problem?
My problem is you're not taking me seriously. I'm not a little girl anymore.
Yet you keep acting like one.
And you keep acting like you know everything when you couldn't even tell that a traitor was flat out lying to you.
Says the girl who fell for a terrorist.
That's not what happened.
You should have never talked to him.
You don't get to tell me who I can talk to.
And Dad put me in charge.
You're not Dad!
So basically, we get the second half of the cartoon Omashu episode in this episode, as well as references to the Cave of Two Lovers, even though Aang isn't there. And then it also incorporates the part of the Winter Solstice Part 1, where Uncle Iroh gets captured by the Earth soldiers. This part I think is fine. I think that Uncle Iroh getting captured by the Earthbenders in the Winter Solstice episode, I mean, it was kind of random. Like, I don't have a problem with it, but it was pretty random. So I think this is cool that it's like, oh, he got captured because Zuko was fighting Aang and Omashu. I think it makes sense. I think it connects, even though I think it's stupid that Iroh caused a scene to get captured. I do think that this is a fair change. But then they also incorporate all of these flashbacks for Uncle Iroh that, like, we just don't need, man. We just don't need these flashbacks. We get a bunch of flashbacks of Uncle Iroh after his son died, and we get a flashback of Zuko after his eye was burned out. Like, I just don't think we needed to see these moments. I don't know why we needed flashbacks for these. But yeah, Sokka and Katara do manage to get to Aang. They're all fighting King Boomy. King Boomy, just like everybody else, lays down on Aang that he should feel ashamed that he wasn't here for the past 100 years, even though this impact is lessened by the fact that Aang did not actually choose to run away. It was just circumstance.
Please, Boomy, you don't have to do this.
Oh, but I do. Some of us have to fight even when we don't want to. That's what it means to be in a war. You'd have known about that if you'd been around. But you weren't. You left us. You were the Avatar. And you left us.
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy this Sith, not join them!
But yeah, Katara and Sokka save the day by Katara waterbending an ice water slide. Like the kind of water slide you see toddlers playing on in their backyard that Sokka jumps onto and slides down in order to reach the Earth King. This water slide got him there like half a second quicker. So yeah, you know, I guess that was super necessary and not at all ridiculous to include. Yeah, that's pretty much the whole episode. Like, the previous episode was trying to pack too much into it, and this episode had, like, nothing going on. It was Aang doing useless trials with the king, it was Sokka and Katara having useless fights in a cave, and it was flashbacks for Iroh and Zuko. Like, I don't like this episode. Nothing really happened. All right, so next up, we get to episode 5. Episode 5 is basically a recreation of the Winter Solstice Part 1, excluding Uncle Iroh's capture. In the cartoon, this was basically when the gang came across a burned down forest, and the forest spirit was attacking the nearby village because it was upset that its home was burned down. Aang goes into the spirit world in order to figure out how to appease this spirit, and speaks to Avatar Roku, who also tells him some pretty important information that Aang will delve into in the next episode. Yeah, Aang figures out how to appease the spirit. He leaves the spirit world, goes back to the village, calms down the angry spirit, and the day is saved. I'm not gonna lie, this episode from the cartoon is kind of boring. It's not my favorite, but it does have a lot of important themes in it about renewal, regrowth, all that sort of stuff. In this episode, the gang do come across the burned down forest and the village, and Aang goes into the spirit world, and somehow Katara and Sokka end up in the spirit world with him. Something that is given zero explanation by the writers.
Sokka, I think it worked.
Katara? What is happening?
I don't know. Aang? I've separated my spirit from my body, but somehow I brought you guys with me.
How is that possible?
Must be the energies in the place and thinness up the barrier in my power.
They didn't even want to try to come up with an explanation for this. So, okay, Katara and Sokka are in the spirit world now. I'm not gonna act like that's totally crazy and that the Avatar should be the only one able to do this, because there's mentions here and there that Uncle Iroh got into the spirit world. So, like, it is possible for regular people to get to the spirit world. I just thought it was funny how the explanation was just a shrug of the shoulders. Meanwhile, Zuko and Uncle Iroh are looking for Aang. They run into a bar where they just, like, overhear some patrons basically referencing the episodes that the adaptation skipped.
What did you say?
The Avatar. He's with some waterbenders. Is that right, Mookie?
What, the Avatar? That's what those pirates said.
No, it wasn't the pirates. It was that canyon guy. He said Avatar fought off some canyon crawlers with the help of a couple of waterbenders.
They reference the pirate episode, which is the one I talked about, where Katara stole the waterbending scroll. And then they also referenced The Great Divide, an episode that I'm very glad got skipped in the adaptation. I know there are some people out there that defend that episode. I am not one of them. I hate The Great Divide. I still watch it on rewatches, but it is just a pure filler episode, and I think it's really stupid. The basic plot of it is that Aang has to help a prissy, prim and proper tribe and a dirty, grungy, grumpy tribe become friends. It's a stupid episode, you guys. So I'm glad that they skipped it. I guess that's the only episode I have an issue with from the cartoon. And then we get more scenes of Azula, not at all acting like the Azula that I know and love to hate. Azula is supposed to be calm and collected. She's smirking, like she knows when the world is gonna end. Nothing frightens her. She knows exactly what's going on at all times. We get a couple of moments in season 2 where we can see that she has this very unhinged side of her where she's a perfectionist. There can be one hair out of place. Like she's constantly on the edge. Like we do get that sense that there's like something really wrong with her. But she's never vulnerable, which makes the second half of season 3 pretty good, because you get to see Azula's downfall. You see this self-assured, calm and collected girl completely fall apart in a way that's really extraordinary. I don't know if that's the right word, but the writing of it is really good. It's really messed up. Azula had a pretty horrific childhood, honestly, growing up in that sort of situation, and you can see the toll that it took on her, and her mental health is not great, and she really needs some therapy, and she's not doing okay, but it was just pretty crazy to see this character that acted flawless before just completely down spiral. It was really interesting. But in this adaptation, she has this like frantic, fearful energy where she's unsure of herself and she's unsure of her place, and she's like, well, am I a good firebender? Like, is Zuko gonna take the throne? Like, she's unsure. She's not confident at all.
Azula! Azula!
That was intense. Could have hurt him.
That's his fault. He should have been better.
Except this wasn't about the trainer.
Azula, you're the best. Everybody knows that. You're perfect.
It's completely wrong. It's all wrong. She's not intimidating at all. I'm not intimidated by this Azula. Ty Lee and May are just there. Them being there just feels like pandering. They don't actually provide anything. They're just there to be like, yeah, Azula, let's go. You rock, girl. But they don't actually do anything. So I don't know why. I don't know why they included Azula in this season. But they did. And I have a lot of beef with it. So, a majority of the episode is spent in the spirit realm. It's not bad. Something that I think is cool, but again, they just don't have enough time for. You know, if they're trying to get through the whole season, you can't spend an entire episode on this spooky horror spirit world episode. Like, there's so much character development that you need to go through. There's not enough time to be spent flopping around. In the spirit worlds, they meet Wan Shi Tong, a knowledge owl that's not prevalent in the cartoon until season 2, episode 10, and is very much an important character in that episode. I don't know why he's here, except for pandering of, oh look, it's the owl from the library. That's cool. Why is he here? He doesn't need to be here. Oh my god. It's just so unnecessary. I mean, it's cool. I think that he looks pretty cool. I don't know why he's here. I don't know why they decided to do this. It doesn't really provide anything. Sokka runs into this white fox that talks to him. Keep that in mind, because that's gonna come back later.
I'm a little discombobulated.
You're funny.
And you're a talking fox.
And basically, Sokka and Katara get captured by the face stealer spirit known as Ko, the one that gave every child nightmares. In the cartoon, we don't meet Ko until the final episode of the first season. Ko tells Aang that the moon spirit is in a koi fish that he needs to protect because Zhao is going to try to kill it. Like, it's a pretty big deal. But in this adaptation, Ko steals Katara and Sokka because he wants to, and Aang doesn't actually need any information from him. Like, it's just a thing that happens. They do incorporate some of the character backstories into this. Ko manages to steal Katara and Sokka by manipulating their fears. Katara has to relive the event where a Fire Nation soldier flat out burned Katara's mom to a crisp a foot away from her, which is pretty horrific. And so that's Katara's trauma. And then Sokka relives this moment where he learned that his dad was disappointed in him because he couldn't successfully navigate his trial to become like a true warrior.
If it weren't for you, Sokka would have wrecked us. We're lucky to be alive. It was a tricky run. Even I only saw the breakers at the last second. You don't have to make excuses for him. I'd hoped when he really had to prove himself that he'd do better. The truth is, not everyone is meant to have people's lives in their hands.
And I'm not gonna say that Katara's trauma is like more valid than Sokka's, because trauma is trauma no matter what. Like, that was still a really horrible memory for Sokka to have. And I'm under the assumption that the reason why Sokka's dad had said that is because he was hoping Sokka was old enough to become a warrior so he could take Sokka with him when they left the tribe. They don't say that. I don't know if that's what we were supposed to think. I hope that they don't want us to just think that Sokka's dad just gossiped about being disappointed in his son, because that's kind of fooped up Sokka's dad.
I'll do it. I'll lead the invasion force.
Don't be crazy, Sokka.
You can do this. I'm proud of you, son.
I don't know if there's another way off this island.
Sokka, there's no prison in the world that can hold 2 Water Tribe geniuses.
Then we better find 2.
So yeah, we do get to learn a bit more about these characters. I mean, I guess we learned that Katara's mom sacrificed herself for her. I think it was pretty early for them to show this. I mean, that's my comment for every flashback they have. We don't learn this in the cartoon until season 3. You know, Katara's trauma is something that's always kind of lurking in the background instead of just being prominently shoved in your face in the very beginning. Sokka does have struggles throughout the show of feeling like he's not worthy. He struggles with his self-worth. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's fine. So basically, Ko captures Katara in Sokka, and he tells Aang that he won't let them go unless he brings back something his past life stole. So Aang talks to Gyatso. Monk Gyatso is there in the spirit world. I thought their interaction was pretty cute. Again, I don't know how necessary it was, but it was cute. And then Aang returns to the real world. And that's basically the whole episode. Again, not a lot happens this episode. It's mostly just them frolicking around in the spirit world. Something that doesn't really provide a lot of substance to their characters. You can't just show us the characters' traumatic backstories and then say, there, we did it. We made compelling characters. It doesn't work that way. We need to see how the characters respond to the trauma, how they deal with it, how they let it influence their decisions going forward. Katara's trauma of losing her mother is explored in the episode The Southern Raiders, where she decides if she wants to exact revenge on the man who took her mom. It's a wonderfully character-driven episode that doesn't only show us Katara's trauma, but how she's choosing to tackle it. Every time the cartoon shows us the flashback of Sokka's dad leaving to go to war, it's relevant to the scene. It influences Sokka's decision. Like, the flashback is part of the story. These traumatic moments from the adaptation show us that Katara saw her mother die and that Sokka's dad was disappointed in him, but it's not tackled, it's not resolved. It's just shown to us and then moved past. I also thought it was weird that they chose to do this after Jet had already helped Katara deal with her traumatic flashbacks interfering with her bending. It would have made way more sense to have Katara resolve her struggle after this episode. And I'm not trying to say that healing is a linear path, it's just weird from a storytelling perspective to have Katara internally resolve her trauma only to have it thrown back up only a couple episodes later. There's no consistency. So that's it. That's the 5th episode. And then we get to the 6th episode, which combines 4 different episodes from the cartoon into one. They combine the Winter Solstice Part 2, where Aang goes to Roku's temple and the Fire Nation and learns about Sozin's Comet. Except in the adaptation, he doesn't learn about Sozin's Comet. He just learns about what relic to hand back to Ko to save Katara and Sokka. And then it also combines the other half of the storm, the half that wasn't about Aang's backstory, but instead Zuko's backstory. So it talks about how Zuko got his scar. And then it brings in the Blue Spirit episode, where Zhao manages to capture Aang and Zuko frees him. And then they bring in June and Nyla from the episode Bato of the Water Tribe. It's a lot, like they're bringing in a lot of different elements in this one episode. So let's unpack it. So the Winter Solstice part. Aang, instead of riding Appa all the way to the Fire Nation Island temple to meet Roku, instead tells Appa to guard Sokka and Katara and flies all the way to the island. I don't really know how that's possible. I was under the impression that this forest village was pretty far away from Roku's temple. But okay, yeah, Aang just like flies there all on his own. And then there's really no sense of urgency. The sages there are trying to capture Aang and they are working for the Fire Nation, but it doesn't really feel like Aang's in any sort of danger. Honestly, this whole episode doesn't really have any sense of urgency. The characters are just kind of lounging around. Roku tells Aang that he just needs to give this totem to Ko and he'll release his friends.
Who dares disturb the peace of the Avatar?
It's me, Aang.
Is it not customary to bow before your elders? And to avert your eyes and hop on one leg?
A totem that represents something that Ko needs and cannot forget. The pennant belonged to the Mother of Faces, an ancient spirit who crafted faces for all living beings.
So Aang leaves to do just that, and oh no, June shows up, and Nyla paralyzes Aang. There's this really slow, weird scene between June and Aang talking about the state of the world.
I've heard the stories about how you're gonna save the world. Some of us don't need saving. Some of us have got this world figured out. I trust you. You know why?
Because if there's any missing, you'll come after us?
Because you're so cute.
Before June hands over Aang to Zuko, and then Zuko and Arrow just put him in a cart to chill while they ride away. Like, it seems like Aang could pretty easily escape from this situation, and he's just chilling. He's just chilling in the back while his friends are about to be eaten alive by a spirit monster and have their souls trapped forever. But that's fine. And then Zhao shows up and sees that Zuko has Aang and says, "I'm taking Aang," and he takes Aang. I don't know to tell you guys, the writers don't think of any creative ways to get from point A to point B. It just happens. Zhao wants Aang, so he takes Aang.
We'll take the Avatar.
Over my dead body.
Tempting. However, the Yuyan archers. I imagine this shouldn't be much of a challenge for them.
So we get the moment from the Blue Spirit episode where, you know, Aang is captured in Zhao's prison. I do feel more urgency in the sense that Katara and Sokka are in danger of being eaten by the face stealer spirit Ko. That's a lot more stressful to think about that for Aang to be on a timeline over, rather than in the cartoon episode where it was like Katara and Sokka were just sick and Aang just needed to get the medicine. The stakes are a lot higher here. I do like that. I do appreciate that. It's much more urgent for Aang to be able to escape to save his friends. But I gotta show you what bothers me, this adaptation of Zhao. At first, I didn't have a problem with this actor. I thought he did a good job. And then, for some reason, towards the end, he starts having these really exaggerated movements that make me feel like he's trying to be a cartoon character in a live-action film. It's really jarring. It feels really out of place. He goes like...
Until now, only one thing stood in our path to victory.
Until now, only one thing stood in our path to victory.
The Avatar.
The Avatar.
We have captured the Avatar!
We have captured the Avatar!
Tonight, we will celebrate!
Tonight, we will celebrate!
We will praise the glory of the Fire Nation!
So then Zuko comes to free Aang. In the cartoon, you don't really know that it's Zuko. The Blue Spirit episode from the cartoon is one of my favorite episodes of the show. It's really good. And in that episode, you don't know that Zuko is the one rescuing Aang until like the very end. I mean, you could put together context clues that it's Zuko based on the fact that Zuko wants to be the one capturing the Avatar. But in the heat of the moment, it's not really obvious that it's Zuko. He doesn't do any firebending. There's nothing like prove who this is. So when it's revealed to be Zuko, it's like, whoa, what? In this adaptation though, they make it pretty dang obvious because just one scene prior to Zuko freeing Aang, Zuko was talking to Uncle Iroh about wanting to free Aang.
Where will you take him? Pohwai's stronghold for the night, then straight to Capital City.
If we take the Eastern Pass, we can make it to Pohwai by nightfall.
Prince Zuko,
We'll have to watch out for the archers, but
Pohwai's stronghold is impenetrable. Going there would violate your banishment.
I don't care.
But Ozai does. And if he finds out...
But the Avatar
is lost! For now!
This show just doesn't understand, like, mystery or show not tell. They even try to make it look not obvious that it's Zuko by not having Zuko firebend in this adaptation either, but it is so obviously Zuko. They do get the really cool moment right where Aang sees that Zuko was the one who freed him and he's about to run. Like, Zuko's been trying to capture him this whole time. Why would he save Zuko? And he starts to run away, but then he sees, you know, Zuko is unconscious, and if he leaves Zuko, it's, who knows what's gonna happen to him? Probably nothing good. So this is another big character agency moment where Aang makes the choice to scoop up Zuko and bring him to safety. He didn't have to. It probably would have worked in his favor not to, but he did it anyway, because he's not the kind of person to just sit by and let Zuko take that punishment, especially when Zuko was the one who broke him out. And in the cartoon, Aang and Zuko have a very, very short conversation once Zuko wakes up, cut short by Zuko himself wanting to blast Aang's face off.
You know what the worst part about being born over 100 years ago is? I miss all the friends I used to hang out with. Before the war started, I used to always visit my friend Kuzan. He was one of the best friends I ever had. And he was from the Fire Nation. If we knew each other back then, do you think we could have been friends too?
In this adaptation, they have a very, very long conversation that is way too friendly.
Check over there.
I have a small boat nearby.
You can't go anywhere. Not with those soldiers still out there. You shouldn't try to move. You're hurt. Trying to help.
I don't need your help.
What?
Goat hair or rabbit? Those guys out there, they're on your side. Why are you fighting them?
They're not on my side. But they will be. When I capture you and bring you back, If I catch you, I can go home. Then I can take my place as the rightful heir to the Fire Lord.
I mean, I'm the Avatar. It's what everyone expects of me. All I do is worry about that. You know what the Fire Lord is doing is wrong. So you don't have to be like him. You can show some compassion.
How dare you? I'm the crown prince of the Fire Nation, and my father is a great man. Compassion is a sign of weakness.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I have a feeling you've been hurt more than enough.
They managed to just have a heart-to-heart conversation. Something that I think is far too early for Zuko's character. He should not be this open to conversation with the Avatar yet, in my opinion. And then we do get a lot of Zuko's backstory flashbacks in reference to the episode The Storm. In the cartoon episode, Zuko got his eye burned out because he chose to attend a war meeting. And he was not supposed to speak at all during the entire war meeting. And he jumped up and spoke out when a decision was being made that he didn't agree with.
The Earth Kingdom defenses are concentrated here. So I am recommending the 41st Division.
But the 41st is entirely new recruits. How do you expect them to defeat a powerful Earth Kingdom battalion?
I don't. What better to use as bait than fresh meat?
You can't sacrifice an entire division like that. Those soldiers love and defend our nation. How can you betray them?
In the live action, it's still pretty similar, but it just has far less of an intense energy about it. Ozai asks Zuko for his opinion about it, and Zuko says he doesn't like it. And then the meeting ends, and everybody's just kind of chattering, and Zuko just casually calls the plan stupid. And Ozai overhears this and takes offense to it and challenges Zuko to an Agni Kai. Like, it feels much more contrived in the adaptation.
The Earth Kingdom's forces are concentrated along the southern coast. We tried flanking them, but they keep lengthening the line.
What would you do?
Your Highness, I would suggest...
Not you. Zuko. What would you do?
Horn's tactic. Enveloping flanks, leaving an escape route to draw them out.
Our tanks would be buried under rocks in seconds. General.
We could advance a division here. With the enemy's firepower focused on that diversion, we can launch pinning attacks here.
If you send them into the heart of the forces, how will they retreat?
They won't.
But they'll be lost. You're gonna sacrifice them.
What division do you suggest?
The 41st. They're mostly new recruits, they're expendable. This isn't something you learn in a textbook.
It's a terrible plan.
What did you say?
I said, it's a terrible plan. Soldiers are gonna die, and for what?
You dare question—
Enough! There is only one way to resolve this. Agni Kai.
And then, in the cartoon, when Zuko realized that the Agni Kai was going to be against his dad, he refused to fight. And so his father burned his eye for it.
When Prince Zuko saw that it was his father who had come to duel him, he begged for mercy.
Please, Father. I only had the Fire Nation's best interest at heart. I'm sorry I spoke out of turn.
You will fight for your honor.
I won't fight you.
You will learn respect, and suffering will be your teacher.
In the adaptation, Zuko is resistant to fighting Ozai, but he does, in fact, still fight, which is interesting. And he loses the fight, and, you know, Ozai burns out his eye.
Prepare yourself.
Father? I'm here to duel General Lee.
You're here because you have no respect for our military.
That's not true.
Really? My military, that's what you have insulted.
Forgive me, Father. I meant no disrespect.
Rise.
No, please, Father.
Rise! Brother, don't do this. He's your son.
We'll see. Rise and fight, Prince Zuko, so you can learn some respect. Compassion is a sign of weakness.
The adaptation tries to play it as Ozai not wanting to get attached to Zuko. There's a moment where Ozai says, compassion is a sign of weakness. Like he's Darth Vader and he's trying not to fall into the trap of caring about Luke Skywalker.
His compassion for you will be his undoing.
Like in the cartoon, Ozai doesn't give a crap about Zuko. Like Zuko could die, survive, he didn't care. He barely cared about Azula. All Ozai cared about was power. I don't know, I guess they're trying to make Ozai less of a cartoon villain. I thought it made Ozai seem far less intimidating. The one thing that I did really like is that the war meeting that Zuko had spoke up in, you know, he said, no, you shouldn't sacrifice the 41st Division like that. Ozai says, all right, well, since you care so much about the 41st Division, you can take them.
You will find, capture, and bring me the Avatar. Oh. And since you're so concerned with the 41st Division, take them with you as your crew.
And so Zuko's crew that he travels with to find the Avatar is the crew that he saved by speaking out in the war meeting. I really like that. That's probably my favorite thing that they add in this adaptation. I thought that was just really cute and heartwarming. His crew is made up of the people that, like, he sacrificed his own honor to save. I thought it was really poetic, and I really liked that. Yeah, that's the 6th episode. All right, guys. 7th episode, second to last. This episode is the Waterbending Master, and the next episode is the Siege of the North, Part 1 and Part 2. So this is the finale of the cartoon. I want to quickly mention all of the episodes that the adaptation decided to skip. The biggest episode that I really wonder why they skipped is called Imprisoned. In this episode, the gang came across an Earth Kingdom town where earthbending was outlawed. If you did any form of earthbending, Fire Nation soldiers would capture you and take you away to prison. And Katara sees a boy earthbending, but you know, she's not a snitch, she won't tell. So she hangs out with this boy and they're talking and they walk by these mines, and all of a sudden there's this old man who's gonna get crushed by the mines unless Haru uses earthbending to save the old man. And Katara convinces him to do it because she wants to save people. So Haru does save this old man, and the old man is a snitch. The old man goes to the Fire Nation soldiers and tells on Haru. He's a horrible, devilish old man. So Haru gets taken away by the Fire Nation soldiers to a prison, and Katara feels responsible for it. She's the one who pushed Haru to save the old man. So Katara comes up with a plan where she has Aang airbend a rock from like under a grate to make it look like Katara's earthbending. So she gets herself captured and thrown into the same prison as all the other earthbenders. Her plan is to find Haru and escape with him on Appa, you know, take Haru back home. But once Katara is there at the prison and she sees just how many earthbenders are living in these horrible conditions, she makes a decision that she has to save everyone in the prison. Sokka and Aang show up on Appa. They're like, it's time to go. Katara's there. She could leave right then and there. And she chooses not to. This is a great character episode. She has a lot of agency here. She decides to stick around and try to free everyone from the Earth prison. This is a big recurring theme for her. It happens again in The Painted Lady, where she cannot just stand by and watch somebody suffering. And I love this about Katara. I feel like this is the episode where you really start to fall in love with Katara as a character. And even though it takes a while and the prisoners resist her a whole lot, in the end, she manages to bring their spirit back and convince them to fight back against their captors and free them. She frees all of these captured Earthbenders. So Haru and all the other Earthbenders get to be reunited with all of their loved ones back in the village. I love this episode. This is a really important episode. I mean, not only does it establish how horrible the Fire Nation is, but it's just such an important episode for Katara. And I'm really sad that they didn't choose to keep it. Again, Katara in the show, she just has no agency. She has no backbone. She's not nurturing. She's not impatient. She's just there. She doesn't really have much character at all in the adaptation, to be honest. And I feel like this would have been a really good episode to help establish her more. And they chose not to adapt it for a reason I just cannot understand. The Waterbending Scroll was also a good Katara episode that they skipped over. I already talked about that one, though. The Great Divide, again, glad they skipped that one. The episode The Fortune Teller is an episode that I do enjoy. Like, it is just fun to watch in the cartoon, but it is kind of filler and you don't really need it. I don't mind the adaptation skipping this episode at all. The gang basically goes to a village run by a fortune teller, and there's a volcano near the village, and nobody in the village believes the volcano is gonna erupt because the fortune teller says that it won't. And then the volcano does erupt. And the lesson of that episode always confused me because the lesson was kind of like, don't just blindly trust people who seem to know what they're talking about. But like at the same time, the fortune teller was right, and in the end, the volcano didn't destroy the village, so...
The village will not be destroyed by the volcano this year!
No offense, but I hope this has taught everyone a lesson about not relying too much on fortune telling.
But Aunt Wu predicted the village wouldn't be destroyed, and it wasn't. She was right, after all.
I didn't really know what to take away from that episode. I don't really mind them skipping over it. Bato of the Water Tribe was a super important episode for Katara and Sokka and Aang that they almost completely skipped over. They took June and Nyla, who were featured in this episode, and that was it. They didn't include anything else. In this episode, Sokka and Katara got to reunite with Bato, a man from their village who's friends with their dad. So they got to like reunite with somebody from their tribe. They get to learn about what they've missed out on. They have these really heartwarming moments with Bato, and during these moments, they are ignoring Aang. They're not treating Aang very well just because they're so excited to see Bato. And if Aang was a mature adult, you know, I'm sure his feelings would be hurt, but he would, you know, take it. He'd understand that this is important for Katara and Sokka. And maybe they would talk about it later, but at the moment, it would be fine. But Aang is a kid and a mail delivery person, a mailman, he comes over to deliver a letter from Sokka and Katara's dad that tells them where he is. So Katara and Sokka could see this letter and they could choose to leave Aang and go pursue joining the cause with Bato and their father. Aang is given this letter. He's supposed to give it to Sokka and Katara, and he doesn't. He makes an extremely selfish and immature decision to keep this information from Katara and Sokka. That's a really big deal. That's really messed up for Aang to do. And when Katara and Sokka find out, they're mad. They decide they don't want to travel with him anymore, and they go off with Bato, and they're ready to leave Aang behind. Until they decide just after a little while that they're more needed with Aang, with the Avatar. So they do reunite with Aang, and Aang apologizes, and all ends well. But again, it is a good episode for establishing the characters and establishing their agency. It shows that Aang is a child, and he makes a lot of horrible mistakes that he grows and he learns from. I think this was a really good episode in the cartoon. I don't know why they skipped it. After that episode was The Deserter. Another episode that I guess they didn't have to include in the adaptation, but I still think it's important. In the cartoon, the episode The Deserter, Aang finds a firebending master. And long story short, Avatar Roku shows up for a moment and convinces him to teach Aang firebending. And we learn that Aang is not taking the firebending seriously. Again, Aang is a child and he's immature, right? So he's being impatient. This firebending master wants Aang to learn firebending very slowly, start off with the basics. Aang doesn't want to do that. Aang just wants to make big fireballs right off the bat. And he does so when his teacher's not around, and he burns Katara in a moment that's really horrifying and dark. He burns her hands. It's serious. Sokka comes over and screams at him for burning his sister. It's really messed up. And luckily, Katara finds out that she has healing capabilities, something that not all waterbenders have, and she manages to heal her hands. So that's good. And then Zhao shows up to capture the Avatar, and guess what? Zhao used to be this firebending master's pupil before he got impatient. It's a parallel, right? Zhao was like Aang. He got impatient, he didn't want to take his time, and he's reckless with his firebending. And because of that, Aang manages to trick Zhao into burning down all of his ships because he can't control and restrain himself. I think this is a really good episode, showing the parallels of what could happen if Aang didn't wise up and take control of his actions and take firebending seriously. I can understand why they may not include it in the adaptation because it does focus a lot on firebending, something that Aang doesn't actually learn about until the 3rd season. But I thought it provided a lot of insight on Zhao as a character, and the adaptation does still heavily focus on Zhao. So I think it would have been nice to include, but they didn't. And that's pretty much it. Those are the episodes that they skipped out on. So, in episode 7, The Waterbending Master, they take a 20-minute cartoon episode and stretch it into a 50-minute Netflix episode. We meet Yue. Again, no hate towards the actress. I don't know what was going on with the wig department. This wig looks ridiculous. I feel like I've seen amazing cosplays of Princess Yue. This wig is pretty ridiculous, you guys. It looks very cartoonish, and it takes me out of the moment every time I see it. I also don't love this actress that they chose for Princess Yue. She's portrayed very differently. She kind of has a swap with Suki, whereas in the original, Suki was kind of sassy and snarky, and in this adaptation is shy and quiet. And the original, Princess Yue, was quiet and proper and reserved. And in this adaptation, Yue is like the fun, quirky princess trying to just let loose.
When I was a kid, I used to hide out here when my dad would meet with the elders. He said he wanted me to see how things worked in the tribe because someday it would be my responsibility. Not very fun. I'd hide out here with the grands and make dessert.
Which I don't like because I think it undermines a lot of the vibe of the Northern Water Tribe. We're supposed to see the Northern Water Tribe as this very rigid, strictly structured society. Princess Yue is beholden by the society. She is betrothed to a man, and she's a princess, and she has duties to fulfill, and it's all very, very strict. It's a strict culture, and she has these expectations of her that she has to follow. In the adaptation, they kind of make it so Yue's like, yeah, like, I was engaged to that guy, but, like, I just didn't really like him, so I broke it off, and I know that I'm supposed to be a princess, but I just want to, like, help people rediscover their spirituality, and I don't hate this as a character concept, but it's just such a drastic change from the Yue that we get in the cartoon. And then it's also revealed to us that this Yue is the fox that Sokka talked to in the spirit world.
So, you're a spirit?
Part spirit, mostly human.
Princess Yue in this is able to enter the spirit world in her sleep, which, I don't know, guys. I feel like it doesn't really add anything to the plot. I mean, I guess it's kind of cool because it reinforces how connected to the spirits in the spirit world she is. I don't know. It just feels like something that the writers decided to throw in. They're like, yeah, you know what? Let's have Princess Yue join the spirit world as a fox, because why not? It doesn't really connect to anything, but sure. The writers want to make Princess Yue more compelling, so they give her access to the spirit world as a fox, which is a cool concept that does relate to her becoming the moon spirit, but then they don't actually explore it. She brings it up once, and then never again. What was the point of expanding her character like that if you're only going to give her the same 2 minutes of screen time as the cartoon? And it's pretty obvious that they don't want her to be a frail princess beholden to the rules of her city, so they try to make her strong and quirky, but now she has nothing to stand for. You can't just make her powerful and cool just by removing her suppression. And we get more great Azula scenes.
You realize he's playing games with you, right? It didn't feel like a game when that boulder was flying at my head.
Just saying, your father already knows you're the best.
He just doesn't want you to know that. Send every bender he has at me. I'll burn everyone in the world until he admits the truth.
What truth?
That I'm the one.
The one what? The one what, Azula? All right, and then honestly, a lot of the episode just kind of more slowly follows the episode in the cartoon, except I gotta point out the scene that talks about the fact that female waterbenders are not taught to fight in the Northern Water Tribe. In the original, we've had scenes of sexism before. Sokka was sexist, right? So it wasn't just randomly brought up. It was a point that had been brought up before.
I think my skills lie more in combat, so if it's okay, I'd like to train in fighting techniques.
In the Northern Water Tribe, women aren't allowed to fight.
Aren't allowed? That's not right.
But that is our way.
This is the first time that sexism is mentioned in the adaptation, so it feels kind of random. Like, oh, like, you don't teach women to fight, okay. And Katara isn't really fierce about it. Like, she's like, well, that's stupid. Why aren't women allowed to fight? Whereas in the original, Katara was pissed, okay? She blew up at Master Paku, and it was this whole big thing.
This is my friend, Katara. The one I told you about?
I think there's been a misunderstanding. In our tribe, it is forbidden for women to learn waterbending.
What do you mean you won't teach me? I didn't travel across the entire world so you could tell me no.
No.
I don't want to heal, I want to fight.
I can see that. But our tribe has customs, rules.
Well, your rules stink.
In the original, Katara was upset, but she was unable to convince Paku. So she decided to have a sneaky plan with Aang and be like, you know what, Aang? You can learn from Master Paku during the day and then just teach me what you learned at night. So she's putting Aang's waterbending training on the line because she's stubborn and she wants to learn waterbending. And Paku finds out about this, so then he says, well, that's it. You've disrespected our traditions. I'm not gonna teach anybody waterbending. And Katara points out that this is stupid and his rules are ridiculous, and she challenges him to a battle.
I'll be outside if you're man enough to fight me.
Are you crazy, Katara? You're not gonna win this fight.
I know. I don't care.
You don't have to do this for me.
I'm not doing it for you. Someone needs to slap some sense into that guy. Aren't you gonna fight?
Go back to the healing huts with the other women where you belong. Fine. You want to learn to fight so bad? Study closely.
In this adaptation, we do get this fight where Katara loses to Paku, asks Paku if he'll teach her, and he says no. And he walks away. And the episode ends.
I'm gonna challenge Paku to fight. I know. He's a master. I know he's probably gonna mop the floor with me, but it doesn't matter.
Do you remember back at the Southern Air Temple when you said we had to go with Aang? That we had to help him save the world? If we hadn't gone with him, I wouldn't have seen how 2 kids from the Southern Water Tribe can measure up to anyone. Go kick his ass.
I'm not going to fight you.
Because you're afraid of what you might learn. That you're wrong.
Go back to the healing huts with the other women. Fine. You
You want to learn how to fight? Study closely.
In the original, Paku sees Katara's necklace, and it's revealed that it was an engagement necklace, and that Gran was meant to be married to Paku, but she left because of the traditional rules of the Northern Water Tribe, because of how, like, suffocating it seems to live there under the pressure of all of these rules. And Paku realizes this and realizes that these firm beliefs and traditions are what scared the love of his life away, and he changes his mind. That doesn't happen in the adaptation. In the adaptation, Katara just convinces Paku. I don't know, it's not very inspirational. She's just like, I'm a woman, and then the camera turns to like 30 other women behind her, and she's like, we're all women together.
I'm here to help. Now's not the time, Katara.
Now is exactly the time.
I thought I made myself clear. Women are not allowed in combat.
I thought I showed you how stupid that is. Forget your pride. You know we can make a difference.
We?
All they want is what you want. A chance to defend their home.
Paku, get over yourself, you old fool, and let us get the job done.
Western side of the wall needs reinforcement. You can help them repair the damage. And see if their warriors need any other assistance.
And it honestly feels really patronizing. It does not at all feel natural and earned like it does in the cartoon. Like, it feels like the writers didn't really want to include this sexism segment in the show, but they were too afraid to take this part out because it was so prevalent in the original. So they just tried to work it in, and like, they just didn't tackle it very well, you guys. In the original, she had fought against sexism the whole show. She had been fierce. She had been independent. She fought Paku, and Paku realized himself that what was happening was wrong because of Katara. I think the writers maybe didn't want it to be like Paku decided sexism was wrong because of his failed marriage to Gran. I feel like the writers saw that and thought that was like a problematic concept. It's not. What they did with it in the adaptation was far worse. I almost wish that they would have just not done it at all at this point, honestly. But yeah, that's episode 7. Episode 8 is the entirety of the Siege of the North, where the Fire Nation attacks the Northern Water Tribe, where Zuko tries to kidnap Aang, all that good stuff. We see more flashbacks to how Zhao found out about the Moon Spirit Koi. Again, a flashback that's not really necessary. And there's this brilliant moment where Zhao is talking to Aang and says,
no matter what you think, this isn't power.
No? Do you realize what I can do? I can wipe out an entire race of benders. Can you imagine what that's like?
No.
Yes.
What? This whole episode is just like a lot of action sequences and moments that the show wants you to feel impactful, but they just aren't. Aang tries to meditate, but he doesn't like go to the spirit world to find out about the moon spirit. In this version, Zuko doesn't manage to kidnap Aang and drag him out into the snow.
The Avatar. There is no Avatar. Not anymore.
Let's go.
No.
Zuko, we must.
We can't.
We must.
Again, something that I thought was an important thing for Zuko. It showed how reckless he was, that he didn't have a plan. He didn't think anything through. All he cared about was capturing the Avatar at any cost, no matter what consequences would arise of it. And yeah, he got them trapped in a cave in the snow. And if the Avatar's friends didn't find them, they would have probably frozen to death. And if Aang didn't choose to rescue Zuko in the snow, Zuko would have frozen to death. Zuko wasn't thinking through his actions here, which is something that Uncle Iroh brings up to him later as a point to his character.
What do you plan to do now that you have found the Avatar's bison?
First, I have to get it out of here.
And then what? You never think these things through. This is exactly what happened when you captured the Avatar at the North Pole. You had him, and then you had nowhere to go.
And again, it's a good character moment for Aang that leads all the way up to Aang in the finale, where he will not choose to let somebody die. He will try to find a way to save somebody. It all ties in. It's all part of their arcs. It's all part of their belief system, and it's all tied in together. Like the swamp tree and the roots and how everything's connected. But yeah, there's just like a lot of action fighting scenes. They have Aang talk to the waterbending avatar. I don't even remember his name. In this adaptation, they try to do this thing where the previous Avatar lives are more prominent characters. Like in the original, the only Avatar that we really get to know well is Roku. And this one, it seems like they also want you to get to know Kyoshi and then this waterbending guy. And then I'm assuming if they get greenlit for a second season, there'll be the airbending woman. Aang gets the waterbender avatar to take over his body and, you know, turn into the giant Godzilla monster. They do the thing where they play the theme song in the background, like from an anime, and they just don't deserve it. So then they, you know, they drive at the Fire Nation. It's all pretty much the same as the original. Zuko and Uncle Iroh flee on a canoe in the freezing Arctic waters. I don't know where they're planning on going. In this version, instead of Aang's Godzilla form, taking Zhao and killing him, like by drowning him or whatever, Uncle Iroh kills Zhao with like a fire whip, and he just boop, flicks him into the ocean, and I guess Zhao dies. That's the end of Zhao. Before Zhao dies, he reveals that everything he did, Azula was behind it. So Zhao had no agency in this show. Azula was just pulling the strings the whole time.
Did you really think the Fire Lord was gonna take you back? It was all a game. And the winner is the one without the scar from Daddy. Ozai was just using you as motivation for your sister.
You're lying! Admit you're lying!
Who identified the blue spirit swords as yours. Azula told me everything I needed to know.
If they wanted to go that route, I think it would have made even more sense to not show Azula at all in the season, because then you would be like, well, who the heck is this Azula person trying to get Zuko killed? Like, there's no mystery, no intrigue. It's like, oh, we know Azula. We know she doesn't like Zuko. It's not really a surprise that she got Zhao to do all these things. This information is not a surprise. The show is trying to play it off like it's supposed to be some like epic reveal, and it's just not. But yeah, you know, the gang saves the day, and then like the last moment is revealing that the attack on the Northern Water Tribe was just a distraction, and that Ozai really wanted Omashu. I don't really know why they care about Omashu, but Azula's there, and Azula has managed to capture King Bumi and all of Omashu. Dun dun dun! The episode ends with Fire Lord Ozai being told by these sages about Sozin's comet. So I guess Fire Lord Ozai knows about it, but Aang does not yet. So that's it. That's how it ends. Closing thoughts? This is not good. But if you gave me the option of whether I would want to watch the M. Night Shyamalan version or this version, I would say neither. I would just want to watch the animation. Guys, just watch the cartoon. These live action adaptations aren't good. I don't think they can be good. Avatar is a perfect animation, and there's nothing wrong with animation, okay? Please, it's 2024. Can we start pretending animation isn't allowed for adults? The whole time I was watching this, it kind of felt like I was watching a Disney Channel original movie, specifically the Kim Possible live action adaptation.
Oh my god! Thank you, Kim. No problem.
I feel like the quality lacks in comparison to that work of art. I don't know. I don't like a lot of the choices that the writers made. I feel like they took out a lot of character agency, a lot of just the personalities. I think they butchered Zuko. It felt like they were writing Zuko like Reva from Obi-Wan, where he's just screaming and thrashing and whining and yelling so much that there's nothing intimidating about him. He's not composed or silent or calculating whatsoever. He tells you exactly what's on his mind. It was a big letdown. I really loved Sokka, and I loved King Boomy. I also really loved the costumes, and there were some cool visual effects, and the transitions were nice, and I appreciated the color grading. Like, this was visually very beautiful, even if they did use way too much slow-mo. But other than that, it just wasn't really something worth watching. I'm sure there's some people out there that would say maybe you shouldn't be comparing this live-action adaptation to the cartoon because it's supposed to be its own thing, to which I say, that's baloney. The only reason that this adaptation exists is to squeeze money from fans like me who are gullible enough to be hopeful that this will be a good adaptation. The cartoon only has 1 extra hour of screen time in total, yet manages to tell a much vaster story than the adaptation, because it doesn't pride itself on dragging out every scene. These writers are so desperate to incorporate long battle sequences to grab your attention, yet they refuse to let the characters have shorter conversations that could be in any scenario other than them just lounging around. I'm almost certain that this show will get greenlit for a 2nd season because a lot of people are going to be hate watching it and it's gonna get a lot of attention from that. If you watched this adaptation and there were things that you liked about it that I didn't, tell me why I'm wrong. I like healthy discussion-like debates. If you watched the live-action adaptation and you enjoyed it, then, like, I'm glad for you. You know, I'm sure that there are gonna be people who like this. I'm sure this is for somebody. It's just not for me. I had very different expectations. It's impossible for me to watch it without comparing it to the cartoon. And when it pales in comparison to the cartoon, it's just gonna feel weak and bad and like a cash grab, which it is. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. It's my first video on this channel. I've been wanting to make a YouTube channel for a while now, but then Avatar: The Last Airbender came out and I just had to talk about it. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I really love watching long-form video essays on YouTube, so I definitely plan on making more of these. Yeah, have a great day, everybody. Bye!